Cheers, queers. Welcome back to another episode of Big Gay Book Club. Woo woo! Today our topic is going to be the fire. What's the whole thing? The Flaming Chains of Love. Woo! By Salmon. So, this is going to be a super fun episode. This story was incredible. If you haven't read it yet, I highly encourage you to do so. But if not, listen to this episode because literally I'm going to spoil everything for you. So you don't even have to read it, but you should because it's freaking amazing. I love this book so much. So this was written by Salmon. Salmon has written the entirety of The Four Elements and many other stories. The translator for this, for the English version, which is what I read, was Natita. So thank you, Natita. Your translations were fantastic, and I wouldn't be here without you. So shout out to you. All right. If you're new to book club, hi. This is going to be an episode where I'm just discussing the book, The Fire, not necessarily the series. If you're looking for content about the series, The Fire, Caitlin and I did part 1 reviewing the series. So we did episodes 1 through 4. That episode's available now. We will be doing another review for the second half of the series coming out after this. We also are reacting to this in real time. So whenever you get this, all the reactions are over on Patreon. There are some on YouTube. Several were taken down for copyright, so it's been harder to put them on YouTube. So check out the link below for Patreon if you're interested in more content like that and just ad-free content, etc. All right, little disclaimer. First of all, the name of this book, Fire, what is it? The Flaming Chains of Love. At first, I was like, is that a sex thing? It is not a sex thing, by the way, but could it be? Maybe. But what a title that was. Love it. And today, I just want to give you a disclaimer. So at this stage, when I'm recording this, in terms of the series, I've only seen episodes 1 through 5 of the series. So anything that I cover in the novel that hasn't aired yet, I'm not going to be able to speculate on, particularly the finale, the resolution of the drama, what the drama is going to be. So I cannot do any comparisons because I just haven't seen it yet. So if you want to comment stuff below, feel free. We will cover that I will cover that with Caitlin in the second half series review. So just want to throw that out there. That is going to limit some things, but not too much because this is going to be a focus on the novel itself. So likes, dislikes, it's mostly likes, a little bit about the series, but really this is about the novel. So how did I read it? I read it on the Meeb app. I still don't know how to pronounce the damn thing. It's MEB. That is my app of choice for Thai girl love novels. Got it on there. I read it because I had a feeling all along going through the 4 elements, element by element, that 5 is going to be my favorite. I didn't know why. I thought it was going to be Nam. Okay, based on the description of like the water and how she's the introvert intellect, thought it was going to be Nam. But I had this weird suspicion that I was going to really love Fai and Fai's story. And I was correct. So I read this because when I started watching, I was going to do like I did with The Air and be like, I'll watch it first and then read the book. And the first episode dropped and we watched it and I was like, no, I think I need to read this book because immediately I was like, this story is hilarious. First of all, it's way funnier than all the other ones. The dynamic, mostly because the dynamic between the 2 leads is hilarious to me. I love that kind of banter that is rooted in like, I really can't stand you, but for some reason I want to be around you. I've said this many times on this podcast, my favorite television show ever is Killing Eve, and that is the dynamic between those leads. So I'm always looking for that dynamic because it's like catnip to me. And I was like, oh, here it is in the 4 elements. Like I wasn't expecting that at all. Having read all of them and having watched, all of them minus what I haven't seen in The Fire at this point, there's always this like wholesome tone and like purity element to the stories because they're fantasy and they're like romantic and they're green flag characters everywhere. So I really wasn't expecting this, like people hating each other legitimately and an actual real believable enemies to lovers story. So the minute I got the whiff that that's where this was headed, I was like, I have to read the story because I cannot wait week to week to get the end of this. I need to know. I suspect everything I want is in this story. And that was correct. So basically the dynamic between Fai and Kaphrao is what pulled me in, because it reminds me of stories that I love. But the thing that really, really solidified my love of this story was that this is onion layer storytelling. And I talked about this a little bit in our review when Caitlin and I talked about like the first 4 episodes of the series. But that is what I love, where basically you get the surface level read of what's happening, which is, oh, Fai hates Kaphrao. But then, like, as the story progresses and as you get to know the characters, you realize as you pull each layer back, each like defensive wall, you see the truth of what is happening all along. And I love that type of storytelling because that's how you get to know people, really. A lot of people are defensive, performing, all kinds of stuff until you get to know them and then you see who they really are. And that's the storytelling, and that's how it's structured, and that is my absolute favorite form of storytelling for a character-focused story, which is what this is. And that is the other reason why I absolutely love this story. It's character-focused, like The Water was very character-focused. And so with that, once I started reading it, I literally read this book in one day. It's the fastest I've ever read a book. Like, this was completely unplanned. I was just trying to like figure out what was going on, and just I fell in love with the story. Each page like just made me love it more until I was like, the entire day just went by and I just got through this whole book. Like, that's how much I loved this story. So with that, you should be warned that I have a lot of things to say about this story because I loved it so much. You can tell how much I actually love a piece of media by how long the episode is. Even when Caitlin's there, it means I'm into it. But my biases aside, there's a lot in this story to talk about because every character has their own growth, their own transformation, their own arcs going on. So there is a lot of meat to this story to really get into from an analysis perspective, which is where I come in. So you have been warned. Please listen to this in parts. If you can get it through it all in one sitting, you're on my level with how much you love the fire. So for the fire, we're going to do something a little bit different. Usually I go through like a quick timeline of what goes down before we like dive into the meat of this for people that haven't read the novel perhaps and would just kind of want to know what to expect. I'm not going to do that here because these notes are already too long, so we're not going to do that. I will say at this stage, having seen 5 episodes of the series, I have a feeling the second half is going to deviate because it already has, but I think the core message is going to be the same. So I'm just going to get into this with like, it's going to kind of go in chronological order, but I'm going to harp on like the themes of the series and like really get into the characters. And I think one of the biggest themes of really the 4 elements, but particularly this story, is family. So obviously the cousins are all connecting the story. That is family by definition. Their support for each other is huge in every single one of these stories. But family is the heart and soul of the fire. It is the connective tissue of this novel. More than a peripheral or supporting way, like it is the story. And so we're going to start getting into the fire by diving into the family dynamics in the fire. Starting first with Fai and her family situation, not just because she's the titular main character, but because her family situation is the more complex and really most relevant to the entirety of the plot. Kaphrao's is also, but like Fai's family is the plot, essentially. So let's start first with Fai's mother, Pakwan, sorry. So Fai's mother, to give you a little bit about her backstory and how she plays into this. She was raised by her grandmother along with her sister, her older sister, who is Aunt Punny. And they were raised by the grandmother, meaning their parents were gone. And then eventually, as they were growing up, their grandmother died. And then Pani ended up being the caretaker of her sister and like big sister. And so that's important because it contextualizes Pani and how we kind of get her dynamics with Fai. The other thing that plays into this is that Pakwan was 10 years younger than Acne, Fai's father. So they had a pretty significant age gap that Pani did not approve of. And after she gave birth to Fai, within a year, she died. So it was this unexpected health decline that it's unclear if it was or was not related to the pregnancy. I get the suspicion that it was, by the way this was written and kind of how, or at least how Pani kind of interpreted this in her brain. But the bottom line is that she died very young, had a childhood where she didn't have a lot of people in her life. And so her and her sister were very, very closely bonded through trauma. Fai, on the other hand, has no memory of her mother. Why would she? Her mother died before she turned 1 year old. And so what she knows about her mother are from photographs and what her father has told her. So there's less of a direct connection with Fai. And the fact that she doesn't have a mother heavily influences the rest of her family and what goes on there. So her father's Acne, whom we see a lot in the series, and he's described as, quote, a man of many loves. Meaning he's Lam, I guess, of the brothers. He's Lam for some reason. And so he's popular with women, men, I don't know, everyone. And Fai hears these rumors and essentially is like cool with her father's reputation, like as long as he keeps his life separate from hers. Meaning Fai's cool as long as he keeps it away from her blood relations and like keep it out of my family. I don't care what you do in your spare time. That's kind of the way Fai compartmentalizes that. And so one of the things that happened is that Acne eventually fell in love again with, I think, Wani. And it got so serious that he's like, oh, I want her to live in my house and like we're going to be married and like kind of like live as a married couple essentially. I don't know if they were legally going to get married, but that was the concept. And young Fai threw a fit because she has abandonment issues that we'll get into. And essentially Acne shut that down and then like let Wani live somewhere else nearby that he paid for. So like meaning like his daughter has a huge influence over him. But they're not particularly close. And a lot of that stems back to the fact that Fai's mother died and that broke his heart kind of thing. But I'll get into that more of that a little bit, just setting the stage here. And then lastly, in Fai's family, character we're getting to know for the first time is Aunt Pani, who is the older sister of Fai's mother. And she was described by her sister to Acne as, quote, she craved love and perfection. Okay. And so in Pani's backstory, she was married at one point and they didn't have kids, but their marriage failed and she's now a divorced woman. And this, quote, failure at love, like this divorce, deeply traumatized her to the point where she tried to end her own life, but her sister kept her going. Okay. So that's important because it will contextualize what goes down with Fai later on. And when her sister was going to marry Acne, she, meaning Pani, strongly opposed this marriage. One, there was an age gap, so she's like, I'm worried he's going to take advantage of you. And second, she's coming off the cusp of a quote, failed marriage. And so she was afraid her sister was about to walk down the same path, meaning she was going to marry the wrong person like she did. And that's how she kind of like framed that. She's like, I don't think he's good enough for you. I'm worried about this. But Mama did it anyway. And then look how that ended. So then her beloved sister and her only family, because Pani and Pakwan only had each other. And then Pakwan dies out of nowhere. And then there's Fai, okay, who's left over. That sounds weird, but like, she's the only blood relation Pani has left, basically. And so her sister essentially begged Acne to like let my sister raise Fai, basically, or let her be very involved. And Acne was so heartbroken after his wife died that he just kind of like gave in to her last wish and like let Pani really take the reins when it comes to running Fai, which everybody ends up regretting these decisions later. But like this was the family dynamic at the time and like the decisions they made and like how we get to the present, which I love that in this story. There's a lot of depth to all of these people. So essentially, Aunt Punny's headspace was that she wanted to, quote, raise Fai to make sure she never felt deprived compared to other children from complete families. So that was coming from a place of trauma with Pani, who lost her parents, lost her grandmother, lost her only sister. And here's Fai, who has no mother, no grandparents on their side, and she's coming from this place of trauma, and she's like, I didn't want this to be my sister's fate, and I definitely don't want it to be her daughter's fate. So that's her headspace in raising Fai. She's like, I want that love and perfection thing for Fai. Okay. And she like projects that onto Fai, and that influences her decision making when it comes to Fai. Okay. And Dad was absent because he was heartbroken. Okay. So then when it comes to Fai partnering off, essentially, Punny's in the same headspace she was with her mother, and she's more determined to not make the same mistake twice, kind of thing. And so she's very adamant that she wants Fai to end up with the right person, which is someone she approves of because she didn't approve of Acne and her sister died. And so she's like, that's how she's processing these things. And so it's kind of like Punny's like trying to break the family curse for Fai. That's kind of like what her love really is. And it definitely goes too far, and we'll get into all of that, but like that's kind of where she's coming from and how we get to where we kind of go. All right. So that's kind of like the characters, and then let's kind of describe Fai a little bit and like who she is, and that also contextualizes what happens as well. So who is Fai? So Fai, as described by Kaphrao, is, quote, her face always looked moody, like that of a grumpy giant, though thankfully without fangs sticking out of her mouth. so like Fai is basically like, she describes her later as a big dog, all bark, no bite. That's basically Fai. So I love that this is Kaphrao's. This becomes like a cute joke with them later, but like, wow, the way they describe each other is hilarious. The thing I really wasn't expecting about Fai, and this is perhaps why I love her so much, is that to me, if I had to kind of compare her with the cousins, which Fai would not like that I'm doing this, but I'm going to. Sorry, dear. She's more like Nam than anyone else. Like, I honestly thought that Fai was going to be more like Lam because they're both young. They both seem to be more like emotional or like slaves to their emotion or in tune with their emotions or something, but that is not at all who Fai is. Fai is most like Nam, okay? Because when you really get to know Fai, you learn that she is a natural introvert and a situational extrovert. Meaning, she'd rather be in a cave by herself than like hang out with people she doesn't know or like socialize. But like once you get to know her and she puts her walls down, she's very expressive. Like you see that very instantly with when she's interacting with Pani because she trusts her aunt completely. And so her big defensive walls are not up. And so she's very sweet and playful and like nice and kind and thoughtful, and she's all those things, a situational expert. When she feels comfortable, she expresses herself. When she doesn't, she's the most introverted person of all of her cousins. So I absolutely love that about her. And something I thought was a really interesting character trait about Fai when reading the novel was that she prefers driving to flying because, quote, it gave her the freedom to stop whenever she wanted. So I thought that was interesting that Fai is also like maybe a little bit like Lam in this respect, where she likes she's more of a little bit of a free spirit, or like likes having the options of opportunities or the ability to do whatever she wants versus like being constrained and confined, and using travel as a metaphor for that. I thought was interesting. Okay, so when we pick up the novel, and meaning like the present timeline, because in this story we go back and forth between the past and the present. Fai is 1 year out from graduating university, and she started working for her father's companies, plural. So this is very much a YA story in that these are very young adults. Well, I guess this would be, it's not in my brain, it's more like a new adult story, I think is a better descriptor. But it would be characterized as a YA story, honestly, because they're both of them are in their like early 20s in this story, coming out of college. And so they're learning how to be adults for the very first time. And then throw the rest of the trauma into the story. So it's a very interesting time period for them. So there's going to be a lot of growth that's involved with the two of them, which is pretty typical of like young adult, new adult kind of thing. So when we first meet Fai in the present, she's an extremely guarded character. I would say she's probably the most fragile person in all of the four elements in terms of her feelings, which is why she's so fiercely protective of her own feelings, kind of thing. Because if you think about her life, she suffered this huge loss from her mother's death. Like, sure, she doesn't remember it, but it greatly affects her entire life, mostly because of the way the people around her react to this. And so she does this thing where she keeps herself at a distance from others. If Fai does not have an attachment, she has nothing to lose. Kind of like if I don't have a weakness. It's kind of like that. You can't hurt me if I don't care about anything. It's kind of how you get Fai, who's very much like, I don't care, like whatever. But the thing about Fai is like in that state, it does make her susceptible to paranoia. Where she's always like, people are always out to get me. She's very quick to think the worst in people. And like truly that comes from being raised by somebody who was also guarding their heart and wanted to guard Fai's, Pani mostly, and like made her paranoid. Because Pani has been through real trauma and unknowingly projected that onto Fai and made Fai paranoid the way she is. Because kids learn a lot from their adults. And so the thing about Fai is when you first meet her, she's quick to assume the worst in people, mainly Kaphrao when Kaphrao comes back. And so Kaphrao is going to be another big character and a big turning point for Fai in the present. And so the way Fai thinks about this relationship with Kaphrao is one of my favorite descriptions in the story is that if she were the fire and the other was oil, then maybe the relationship was like that of a storm lantern, never meant to mix. But without each other, the light would go out. So that's one of my favorite dynamics where it's like, we should not be in the same room together unsupervised. However, for some reason, I want to be in the same room with you unsupervised, and I can't live without the possibility of that. And that's essentially their relationship when you boil it down. Okay, so to put together all the family dynamics and kind of like what happens in the story, when it comes to her father is like a cautionary tale of what happens when you give your child too little love, kind of thing. So Acne and Punny essentially have two different and opposite reactions to Fai's mother's death, and it both influences how they raised Fai and how Fai perceives love and kind of navigates human relationships, kind of like damages her a little bit. So Acne is the absent one, essentially, because he does not handle the death of his life really well. I think he's a lot like Fai in the sense that when he loves somebody, he loves them deeply and completely. And so when his wife died, he was a broken person, which is completely understandable. And so he responded to that by shutting down emotionally to protect himself, and he buried himself in work. So as a consequence of that, he distanced himself from his daughter during her formative years. And I think what happened was when Kaphrao comes along, when when this orphaned girl whom's like father was like in his care essentially as his worker and kind of thing comes around, I think that heartbreak is what leads leads Acne to take care of Prow. Because I think that what he sees in her is Fai, because she's almost the same age as his daughter. She lost both parents. He's been shielding himself, and he's somebody who loves so deeply that he sees this girl and he takes it on himself to like be her surrogate dad. And he puts all of his love into Kaphrao. Mostly because he's ready at that stage and has healed from his, the loss of his wife. And also she's willing to receive it because at that point with Fai, it's like rocky terrain because they've been distant for too long and neither of these motherfuckers can communicate. So that's that. Okay, when it comes to Fai, they definitely have a rocky relationship that really stems from this like absenteeism of his. And so to quote Fai and what she thinks about her father, she thinks, quote, "How could a father like Acne never take his own daughter's side, not even once? Quote, why does he always compare them, her and Prow, and praise that girl who had absolutely nothing worth admiring?" So meaning Fai is at the root of this really jealous that her father loves Kaphrao so easily, and it seems to be in this contest for like with Kaphrao for her father's love. The only child also. And she's like, what the hell? Why are we competing? You're supposed to love me, your daughter, and you've never treated me the way you treated her. So from Fai's perspective, like Pani's, whispering in her ears aside, like that's a lot to try to navigate as a child who doesn't know what the hell's going on, right? And then later on, like Acne, the way he treats Kaphrao, he like babies her, honestly, and he's very quick to blame his daughter in situations because he's overly protective. The way Fai is also the same way, right? And then, but what I like about this story is that throughout the story, Acne over time realizes that he made mistakes raising Fai because adults are humans and humans make mistakes. And he does confide in Kaphrao that Fai doesn't listen to him when the story starts. And he's like, I don't know how to handle that. Like, I don't know what to do about her. Like, I made mistakes, but I don't know how to fix them. Which, again, human being doesn't know what to do, right? But he recognizes that he played a role in this. And at some point, after arguing with Pani, he admits to himself that when his wife died and he essentially relinquished parenting rights to Pani about Fai, quote, he reflects that decision, quote, had always felt like a mistake in his heart. If he could turn back time, he would have taken full responsibility for raising Fai himself. So I admire the fact that the adults in this story are fallible. They're not perfect. They make mistakes. Sometimes they don't know how to navigate them, but eventually they figure it out and make amends. And that's, again, the family aspect of the story that I love. And something I wasn't expecting when it comes to Acne and Fai is that this is the only father-daughter relationship in all of the 4 elements that isn't idyllic. Like, it's not a Disney parent-daughter relationship. You can say that Din's is not idyllic because her father died. However, when you get flashbacks of Din and her father, they had this cute, beautiful, supporting relationship. So her relationship with her father is idyllic. It's just the fact that he died does not great in the present. But their father-daughter relationship was like a fairy tale. Acne and Fai, like, butt heads constantly. He made mistakes raising her. Like, they have more of a human relationship than this like Disney sweepingly supportive kind of relationship. You can argue that Nam and her father don't have an idyllic relationship. I think they do. Like in the novel, they butt heads at one point, but it gets resolved and everything's just fine. The friction is so minimal, but like these two spent years, like decades, not on the same page. That is not idyllic. This is far from idyllic. So I absolutely love that in the very last element, Salmon gave us this really complex family story. Not just this like, aren't all the elements great? Isn't this the perfect family? No, like she was like, look, they're not perfect. And they own that. And I like that about this story more than anything. And really the catalyst for change when it comes to this entire family dynamic is Kaphrao. Okay, particularly when it comes to Acne and Fai, because Kaphrao shows Acne how to be a parent. Like through her, he learned how to be the parent he couldn't be for Fai when he wasn't ready because he was heartbroken. And she also teaches Fai how to regulate her emotions so that these two eventually can talk like adults, which is amazing. On the opposite end of the parenting spectrum, we have Aunt Pani. So this is a cautionary tale of how too much love can be a bad thing. So Pani, like Fai, is the type of person who protects their loved ones incredibly fiercely. Okay, in that regard, in the regards to parenting Fai, she's the opposite. Acne was hands off, she's hands on. Okay, so instead of being really quick to accuse Fai of being the one who did something wrong, she is like, no, it must be Kaphrao, it can never be Fai. So like the parents, I'm going to call her a parent because she basically acts as a parent, do opposite things. They're opposites, complete opposites with who they blame, how they love, kind of thing. And again, this all goes back to her trauma because, again, she wants Fai to feel, quote, whole in a way she doesn't. Okay, because she wants better for Fai. So the thing is that she doubles down on loving Fai more than anything when Acne becomes distant, because Fai needed somebody to love her, and her father just was not that person at that time, right? So, in a way, she's overcompensating. She's the one who's trying to be both the mother and the father that Fai didn't have growing up. And so she loves Fai more, like double, if that makes sense. And so when Kaphrao comes in and she sees Acne suddenly acting like a father to this girl who's not his biological daughter, and he's been ignoring Fai for years, like, it's not a huge stretch of the imagination for her to become paranoid that, oh my God, he's going to replace Fai. Because she never wanted him to be her brother-in-law in the first place. And then she's like, I knew there was something wrong with you. And you know what I mean? You can see where the wheels would start turning for Pani and be like, I'm worried for Fai. I'm worried for Fai's future. Like, when she, I want her to be loved, not ousted. What if, her trauma is being triggered hardcore, and she's worried that Kaphrao is going to, quote, take Acne's love away from her. And so it's like Fai would be losing a parent all over again, kind of thing. And she's like, absolutely not. Your love's going to be perfect in the way mine couldn't. And so that is why she doubles down on all of this. And so unfortunately, her good intentions turn toxic. And so some of it is direct. Like when we start getting to her, like actually interacting with Kaphrao, it's like obvious. But honestly, there's some like, trying to think of the right word. Subtle, I guess. There's like subtle toxicity that's pervasive throughout Fai's entire life, her entire life. And the main thing is the way Pani spoils Fai. Okay, and like I understand, you love somebody, you want to give them the best of everything, but the thing is, she enables Fai's bad behavior because she doesn't actually punish Fai for things. And so Fai, when you meet her, acts incredibly childish. And no one has told her no, because she's been raised by somebody who wants to give her everything. She wants Fai to always have her way. And so she turns out to be this spoiled brat. So because she had a parent that, like, she didn't have the good cop, bad cop kind of parent. Okay. She had just the doubly good cop that wanted to, like, make everything perfect for Fai, right? Good intention, bad outcome kind of thing. And so what happens with Fai is when you meet her, she's in a state of arrested development. Meaning, like, she's trapped between childhood, where all this fuck shit went down, and, like, the cusp of adulthood. Which is why she's a hell of a lot more childish than Kaphrao is. And Kaprao's like a year younger than her when they reunite as adults. Okay? A lot of it comes from Pani spoiling her. And so something else I find really interesting with Pani is there's an irony to her relationship with Kaphrao and the way that she hates Kaphrao. So in her mind, she's worried that Kaphrao is an opportunist and a gold digger. Okay. And so she makes Fai promise essentially stay away from her and not get involved with her. But the thing is that, like, in her paranoia, Pani is blinded to the glaring similarities between Fai and Kaphrao. Also, the glaring gayness between the two of them that's kind of been there a long time. But, like, you know what? Parents see what they want to see when it comes to their kids. But the thing is, at the end of the day, they have a lot in common. Like, if you're just going to look at them on paper kind of thing. Like, when comparing Kaphrao and Fai, they're both motherless. Kaprao's situation is even worse because she lost her father. But if you're Aunt Pani, like, Fai emotionally lost her father, not physically, because, like, Acne became distant, but he was still technically alive. So in a way, like, neither of them were really raised with their father from Pani's point of view. But Kaphrao doesn't also does not have an aunt or any kind of relative looking out for her. I think the closest she has, Acne aside, is Uncle Yod, because he knew her father and he's very protective of her, out of respect for her father, kind of thing. But does not have the same social support system that Fai has, as, like, porous and little as it is, kind of thing. But and also her, like, protectiveness of Fai, like, really just blind her, and so it makes it so that, like, Pani can't empathize with Kaphrao, even though, like, she could empathize with Kaprao's situation in the way that she empathizes with Fai. But I think that ultimately with Fai, it's like that is her sister's child, and like her trauma and paranoia stems back to her mistake and feeling like she failed her sister, kind of thing. But like from that regard, she should be able to empathize with Kaphrao, and hopefully over time she does, like when she like heals later on in the story, because like they have a lot. She has a lot of similarities with her niece, whom she deeply empathizes with. Okay, so speaking of Kaphrao, so the family dynamics that Kaphrao has going on are less important to the plot. I mean, they are, because that's how Kaphrao ends up in Fai's house, but they shape who she is and her circumstances. I'll just say that. And so with her family, so her mother didn't die, but she essentially left to start a new family and just like ghosted Kaphrao and her father at some point, just like never returned. So she essentially grew up without a mother who abandoned her and has no memory of her mother living with them. So just like Fai, she also doesn't remember her mother. So the big person in her life was her father, who was one of Acne's workers. And in the story, it's mentioned that he passed away from a serious illness. So just like Fai's mother. And at the time when she lost her father, she was 7 years old. Fai was 8 years old. So she remembers her father and was able to form memories when he died. So unlike the mother situation. And so Acne adopts her as his niece. And that's how we get Kaphrao and Fai as kind of like these like stepsisters, I guess, kind of thing, or surrogate sister situation. And so Fai, the only child, and ends up with this very complicated relationship with Fai, who's someone that Kaphrao, in the novel, it's translated, she calls her as Babe, and I'm just going to keep calling her that based on the novel translation. But they use a different translation on the series, or it was translated differently. I'm not entirely sure because I didn't read the original, but we're just going to keep calling her Babe. Okay, so Kaphrao and the way she thinks about Fai is very complicated. So to quote Kaphrao regarding Fai, back when they were kids, Fai had felt like everything to her, especially after she had lost her father so suddenly. Fai helped shape her into the woman she was today, like in the present, capable of standing on her own. So the thing is that like Fai was a little monster and did bully Kaphrao a lot. But when you get into Fai, you'll find out why she was doing that stuff. But Kaphrao appreciated this like tough love, essentially, on some level that Fai was doing. But she also does not appreciate the way Fai treated her. And so I like that in this story, there's nuance to the way Kaphrao internalizes her relationship with Fai as it kind of develops from like childhood to adulthood. It's not this like, you can treat me badly and it's fine kind of thing. She's like, fuck you, Fai, for the way you treat me. And like gets her back, in her way. But like she understands that like honestly, like this was a catalyst for me to change and become a better person, become a stronger person, a more independent person. Because Kaphrao lost everything at age 7, had nothing, felt very appreciative to be taken in by Fai's father. And she's like, you're going to take care of me and give me a sister, like a big sister to look up to. Like that meant everything to her. But then Fai is a little monster, essentially, when they're growing up. And Kaphrao recognizes that the bullying was bad and doesn't let Fai get off the hook for that. But she's like, good things came out of this situation. And so I love the nuance in this story. It's not, here's a trope that explains this away kind of thing. It's more nuanced than that. So when we get into the present, Kaphrao has had time away from this, growing up in Bangkok, and like kind of compartmentalized a lot of this, and is like, she genuinely does not like Fai anymore, like as a person, because she's like, you're just still the same bully. You're just a bully still. And she's like, I changed, became a better person. You haven't. So I'm not putting up with your shit. And if there's a genuine, there's not a, oh, I've been harboring this crush all along kind of thing. When they are first reunited, Kaprow's like, no, you're a bully. Like, no, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm just here to like pay back your dad and like earn my keep and like that kind of stuff. Like that is her headspace initially. Something I thought that was cute that's in the novel. I don't know if this will ever come up on the show, but cute fun fact about Kaphrao is that when Kaphrao was young, she really loved fairy tales. Fai teases her about this, both of these things. And then as an adult, I think they're like at the mall or something, and Kaphrao gravitates to like romance novels. And Fai obviously teases her, but I think it's really cute that like Kaprao's like, no, this is my source of joy. Like, which I love that because it's just like that's her escapism is like books and reading. And I think that's really cute that it like followed her through childhood to adulthood. And who knows, maybe Kaprao's into romantasy reading, and that's why she's into Fai so much, because Fai is extremely shadow daddy coded in this story, which is one of the reasons I love it so much, because I'm into that regardless of the gender, especially when it's not toxic. When it is toxic, throw that shit in the trash, but this is a not toxic version of that, and it's so honestly, I forgot that like by the end of this, Kaphrao kind of is shadow daddy coded herself too, but she doesn't have like the money and the wealth and the power that Fai does. But like she's got a little stuff going in there, and we'll get there when we get there. Okay, so something that I like about this story is one of the themes of this story is the indoctrination of children, which is an unfortunately real thing that is incredibly harmful. And this story does not shy away from that. It even explicitly explains that that's what's going on in the story. And so to quote the novel, quote, people say that childhood innocence is like a white cloth. The colors it gets depends on the adults who raise the child. Indoctrination of children. Because children are malleable. Children don't know any better. Children are taught to, particularly in this cultural context, to put all of their trust and respect into adults no matter what. And so that gives a lot of power to the adult who's molding and shaping them. So the wrong person wielding the molding can have a bad outcome, and that is what happens here. So Fai was shaped by her guardian's trauma. So Acne's absence created insecurity and abandonment issues in Fai. And then Aunt Punny's helicopter parenting created this paranoia and competitive mindset for Fai. Okay, and she gets arrested in that state, that arrested development of hers. And so, in a way, the adults that she trusted to guide her both failed her in their own way. Okay. And so, this is how you get thoughts like this from Fai. So, quote, when it comes to Kaphrao, this is what she thinks. Quote, if someone dared to steal another person's father, meaning Kaphrao, dare to take the love that shouldn't be shared, then they'd better be ready to cry their heart out from being bullied every single day. So that really is a culmination of all the trauma from her guardians and how she internalized, and that became part of her personality. So she's paranoid that Kaprao's going to steal her father's love, her father who's already absent. She's insecure that she can't keep her father's love. She's fear of being abandoned. She's super competitive about it and also super paranoid. So it's all in that one sentence. And the thing about it is that like Fai was not the only person indoctrinated here, because Kaphrao is also a child and also influenced by the adults in her life, because she was also young and impressionable, just like Fai. The thing is that Kaphrao had this situation where she had unconditional love from her father for at least 7 years. Okay, where that was uninterrupted. So she grew up with this like unconditional, healthy kind of love situation. At least we don't get into it a lot, but I don't get the impression that he was like Aunt Punny, where he was paranoid and like all this kind of stuff and like unknowingly projecting that onto her. It didn't seem like that was the case. And when Acne comes in and takes over as father, he also was very loving and supportive. So it's almost like she didn't have a gap in that kind of love when it comes to her father or father figure. Okay, unlike Fai. But the thing is, like, so she had unconditional love from like the guardian, okay, in her life. The thing is, though, then Fai comes in. And Fai is the one that really molds her more than so than the adults, because she bullies Prow into becoming a stronger, more independent person. Whereas when she cried and got sad, or like not sad, but like when she showed weakness, the adults would swoop in and like be like, there, it's gonna be okay. Fai is like, you gotta learn to not fucking do this and stand up to yourself, but said that in like a childish way kind of thing. And she's like, you need to learn to be independent. Like, I'm translating Fai, by the way, her bullying. So, like, Fai parents her in a different way. It's just like, you have the blind leading the blind. Like, what did you expect? This was, of course, was going to be a disaster. And the thing is that Kaphrao internalizes all of that. And so the summary of her trauma or indoctrination is, quote, she knew how much of a burden and nuisance she must have been to the other girl's eyes, meaning Fai. That's why she made up her mind to grow up strong, to stand on her own, and never again rely on someone who truly didn't want to help her. So again, that's a culmination of everything, and that's her relationship with Fai in a nutshell when they first meet. She's like, thanks for the lessons, but I don't fucking trust you, and I don't want to be in your debt because you clearly can't stand me. And so when you put that all together, Fai and Kaphrao's childhood is a tragedy, like in the literary sense, it's a tragedy. So the thing is, like when you really get into the two of them and the truth of, you know, what their childhood was like, their first impressions of each other, and then ultimately how it ends, like their childhood meaning, they both liked each other. Like they like if left uninterrupted, they would have been friends. Is the thing. Like Kaphrao was so happy she finally had a big sister after losing her entire family. And Fai, when they first met, was also happy she finally had a sister because she was alone too, and felt this like instant quote love for Kaphrao, like a sisterly bond, like some kind of bond immediately. Like Fai felt that. Fai, who doesn't trust people very easily, Fai, who keeps her walls up, she felt a connection with Kaphrao. And when you meet Kaphrao, you realize she's very friendly, approachable, kind of like Lam a little bit, where she's a good people person. But the tragedy is that these children were taught to hate each other. Like, Pani poisons Fai with her paranoia against Kaphrao, and then Fai is the one that poisons Prow against her by essentially doing what Pani's taught her to do, essentially. And so that is the ultimate tragedy. If left alone, these two would have been friends and everything would have been hunky-dory. But then you wouldn't have this story if that happened. So then what happened? So there was there's a bunch of little events that lead to a big major event that changed everything and led to the future. Okay, this was the past mistake that sets up the future. So to put it all in context, basically Fai sets up a ruse to surprise Kaphrao, and it goes horribly awry. So context for the scenario: Kaphrao ranks first in her class because when they were kids, like Kaphrao was incredibly smart and was like valedictorian level smart. Okay, so she ranks first in class, and Fai gets her a teddy bear that Kaphrao has wanted, and she was going to surprise her with it. So the way she does it is she like lures Prow outside and is like, okay, let's play hide and seek. But so she wants her to close her eyes so she can surprise her with the bear. But Kaphrao gets very scared. Oh, she's scared of the dark because of her trauma. And Fai knows this. And she's like, okay, so I'm gonna need you to get in this truck and I'm gonna close the door because that's the only way I can keep you from peeking and doing things like that. Okay. So, but then while Fai is going to get the teddy bear, the truck drives away. And they find Kaphrao half a day later in this truck. Okay. But here's what ended up happening to her. So her father says that Kaphrao had likely cried so hard from fear that she passed out. Thankfully, nothing life-threatening. And as a result, Fai was punished by her father. So in the novel, Kaphrao doesn't almost freeze to death. It's scarier in the series. What happened is she's a passed out kid in the truck and like nothing bad happened to her. And when you're learning this in the story, Fai is literally crying, I didn't mean to. And her father snaps, you say you didn't mean it, but you almost caused her serious harm. Like your actions have consequences, Fai, kind of thing. And then as they're arguing, Pani immediately grabs Fai and takes her away from her father. And as they're walking away, Fai continues, quote, "My dad will send Kaphrao to stay somewhere else. I'm never going to see her again." And what's fun about the story is you get this blurb in the beginning of the novel, mostly out of context. But it's very obvious in hindsight that Fai felt remorse immediately and was scared of losing Kaphrao also. Because if you think about Kaphrao and Fai, they both have abandonment issues on some level. They both lost a ton of people and are afraid of losing people that matter to them. And here's Fai expressing that essentially. So she was trying, it was like, again, this is another theme in the story. It's like good intention, bad outcome. Like Fai had a good intention with like trying to surprise Kaphrao with something Kaphrao has said she really wants, which is this teddy bear. And Fai was like, "Oh, I'm gonna surprise her and do a good thing." And then Kaphrao almost like dies, like, or whatever. Like could have been a really bad outcome. And so ultimately Acne sends her away before something worse happens, essentially. So after this major incident, 15 years go by. And in those 15 years, Fai had no idea her father was still supporting Kaphrao. She had no idea that she would ever see Kaphrao again. 15 years later, Fai is 22 years old, just graduated college and was put in charge of most business operations by her father. She's the heir apparent. And was raised by Pani very closely and very distantly by her father. 15 years later, Kaphrao is 21, going on 22. She turns 22 during the novel. She spent those 15 years in Bangkok boarding schools and just graduated university. And she plans to work hard for her uncle Acne's businesses to pay him back for supporting her. And that is where the story starts and picks up. And all of that context is very important to how we get to where we get to and why we get to the fire, essentially. But before we delve further in that, I first want to give some shout outs to our cast crew over on Patreon. Woo! Yay, Patreon. Woo! So for our big gay ride or die tier members or above, these members pay $15 a month, get a shout out in every episode, and get exclusive bonus content, early episodes, no ads, all that jazz. So thank you to Amix Monzone _ Multi, Alina, Anita N, Ash, you so stunning. Ayana A, Blue Wolf 0880, Caroline R, Chloe, Christina H, Danny, Isla, Faye, Girlfriend _J _XIX, here for it, Jasmine O, Jill L, Kayushi, Cassie M, Kelsey S, Kiara, Leona J, Livia A, Lovely Things, Mermaid Talia, Michelle G, Nancy D, Pooja S, Regina B, Terry Y. Woo, woo, woo! Thank you all. Hope you're enjoying all that special fire content. We got the BTS episodes, and we got some also special ones coming at you. They're 4 Elements theme. Stay tuned for those. And for our Big A supporter members, this is our largest tier. As you can see, they get paid for $5 a month. They don't get the bonus content. They don't get shoutouts in every episode, but a select few get shoutouts in every single one of our episodes. You get early access, no ads, all that jazz. So for today, I'm going to give some shoutouts to the members who have interacted with our fire content consistently. So a big shout out to Christy, Jeff N, Zori M, Mary L, Whitecat112, and Beard J. Thank you guys for adding to the conversation about the fire. It's been super fun. This is a very engaging story. Happy to hear from all of you. If you're interested in checking out Patreon, there's a link below in the description. With that, let's get right back into the fire. So before we go any further into the story, I first want to take a quick moment to talk about the names that are used in the fire and what they mean and all the fun wordplay that's been going on. So Kaphrao's full name is Atitayaya, which means sun, which I love. So we have the fire and then the sun, which is a much bigger fireball, because these two have a lot in common, actually. So that's a very fun play on words. And then Fai's full name is Achama, which means honest and straightforward, which is the perfect name for her. But then the nicknames, we have a lot of fun wordplay that goes on with them. So Kaphrao means holy basil, which will come up time and time again and is a fun thing to play with. But Fai, being the child that she is, calls her Nutapau because it sounds like Kaphrao and it means guinea pig. So she calls her that over and over again. And then because she's also childish at times, Kaphrao calls Fai, like accentuates the A, which translates into buffalo, and buffaloes can be stubborn. So it's another way to call her an idiot. So they have these childhood nicknames for each other that are insults, and it's like it's perfect for the characters based on literally everything. So I think it's a very fun, clever use of wordplay to shape your characters and characterize them, and I absolutely love that. And as we all know, fire means fire because this is the fire. This is the fire, guys. All right. So, name appreciation out of the way. Let's get back to 15 years later when Kaphrao and Fai are reunited. So, I want to get into what that reunion meant from each individual point of view. Okay, so we'll start with Kaphrao and how she felt, what she thought about meeting Fai again 15 years later. So, these are her initial thoughts. The moment she introduced herself, Achima's indifference shifted into a scowl, clearly showing her displeasure. Even though she tried to tease Fai back a little, just enough to show that she wasn't a victim anymore, she honestly didn't want to have problems with the daughter of the man who had done so much for her. So Kaphrao does not approach their reunion with malice. She doesn't approach it with a grudge. She's like, I'm going to tease Fai a little to show her that, like, she can't push me around, but that's it. I'm here to stay in my lane, kind of thing. And to piggyback off that, this is another one of Kaphrao's thoughts. Quote, she does her job, earns her salary, and never had any intention of competing or stealing anything, unlike what Fai had probably assumed about her since they were young. So she's, again, aware that Fai's quick to make assumptions. She's paranoid now, or she has been, really. And that she's like, Fai's probably going to think I'm bad intentioned, even though I'm good intentioned, and I'm just going to get through it, which says a lot about Kaphrao. Then we get into Fai's point of view. Okay. So how she feels about this reunion. Quote, she was happy, but it turned into disappointment when she saw how much Kaphrao had changed. There was no longer that clingy guinea pig trailing after her. No more sweet whining or constant affection, even when scolded or pushed away. Never once giving up. So Fai also has very complicated feelings towards Kaphrao that has been pervasive since their childhood as well. And so in their separation of the 15 years, Fai has felt guilty about that this whole time because she never meant for Kaphrao to leave or to be the cause of that, and they never got to say goodbye to each other. And Fai didn't know her father was supporting Kaphrao. She had no idea this was ever going to happen. And so at first she was like happy that her friend is back, but then she's like, you're not my friend. Like, who are you? And that's what drives a lot of Fai's behavior in the beginning of this novel. She cannot figure out who Kaphrao is anymore. And because she's still stuck in her adolescence, she has no idea how to approach this. And so she falls back into patterns of being a child when it comes to Kaphrao. And the only way she knows how to get her attention is by teasing the shit out of her, kind of thing. So if you think about it, there's like this kind of like this relationship explores the concept that there's like a fine line between like love and hate kind of thing. So you get that description that I just gave you, Fai describing this scene much later in the novel, but initially in the first couple of chapters, she describes how she feels in Kaphrao's presence again. Quote, it felt like heat, scorching, seething heat rising from within, like a flame that had long gone out, only to be reignited. And someone kept pouring fuel on it without the slightest hint of remorse. So you can take that as hatred or love, because heat can mean either of those things. Like passion, hatred, like you can kind of conflate the two. So like what exactly was Fai feeling in that moment? She didn't really know, but like on reflection later, she's like, I was happy you were back, but then like, who the fuck are you? So like the way it turns into rage pretty quickly. Like Fai is very volatile with her emotions, and it's really unsurprising when you see how Acne behaves. He's also volatile. So is Pani. Like the apple didn't fall far from the tree when it comes to Fai. And so she essentially proceeds to interact with Kaphrao with this like attention-seeking behavior that she does. Okay. So at some point in the novel, Rose in the novel describes Fai's behavior as like, quote, boys who pick on girls they like. And that's literally what she is doing because she doesn't know how to do anything else because this was their dynamic when they were children. And so one of the things that so it backfires on Fai because they end up in this situation where like there's a role reversal that happens when they're adults, okay? Where she described Kaphrao as being clingy when they were children. Well, Fai, look in the mirror when you're an adult because, quote, now Fai was the clingy one, the one being annoying in Atitia's life. Like someone who was bad at expressing feelings, harsh with her words, was a difficult personality, but only ever wanted to be seen by the one person that mattered. That is exactly what Fai is doing. That is Fai's behavior. Fai did not have positive role models as adults that taught her how to regulate her feelings and how to express them. Okay, so this is what you end up with. She's like, the only way I knew how to get your attention when we were children is when I would push you away and you wouldn't give up and you would just cling to me even harder. Okay, that's what Kaphrao used to do. But now they're adults, and Fai is like, why isn't she doing that? Why, when I push her away, does she stay away? I don't want that. I don't want her to stay away. So she's like, I have to start clinging to her because that's I'm trying to get the old dynamic back, and it's not working because Fai has to transition out of adolescence into adulthood, and that is the plot of the story. Okay. And what I like about Fai is that Fai goes through this transformation. Okay. The fire, like a phoenix, she rises from the ashes and becomes an adult. Okay. This is fire means transformation in poetry, in literature, and that is what happens in the fire. So by the end of this story, Fai is having a conversation with Kaphrao, and after she has reflected on this attention-seeking behavior and tells Kaphrao she, quote, realizes it wasn't okay. So she, like all the people in her life, they're not perfect. I like that Fai is not presented as a perfect person. Like the rest of the cousins are presented as these green flags, okay, that have never done anything wrong in their lives, basically. Fai is not that. She is human. She makes mistakes. But you know what? She learns and grows from them. And that is why this is my favorite story in the Four Elements, because the journey that she goes on, the growth of her guardians, even Kaphrao, like they all grow in these tremendous ways, in these human ways, where they learn from their mistakes. They learn from like the things they go through. And it's not just you're a green flag, you're always a green flag, you're a red flag, you're always a red flag. It's like, no, they're nuanced people in nuanced situations. They make a decision, the decision has a consequence, and then they move on with their lives from these consequences. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're a mistake, they learn from them, they keep going. That is this story, and it's an excellent, excellent story. And at the heart of it, the fire is an enemies to lovers story that is done correctly. Okay, it hits the trope well. This is a well executed one. Okay, so you have Fai, the young master. Okay, she is spoiled and young and is not used to people telling her no. She doesn't even listen to her own goddamn father. Okay, then you have Kaphrao, who used to yield to Fai. Okay, because Fai was her older sister, and that's part of the culture. You listen to your elders. So when they were children, when Fai told her go stand in the woods, she would go stand in the woods. But an adult, Kaphrao won't yield to Fai until Fai respects her. And that's an enemies to lover story done right, because it's built on respect. It's built on two people that have reasons to hate each other. Pani whispering in Fai's ear, Kaphrao hating Fai because of the way Fai treated her based on Pani whispering in Fai's ear. But then when they get to adulthood, when they are reunited, the hatred is there, but it has to change. And it changes based on respect, okay? And the respect is who is yielding to who kind of thing. So where the dynamic changes and where these two achieve balance and the enemies shifts into something else that then gets to lovers is when Fai sees Kaphrao as an equal because she respects her. And it happens when Fai starts yielding voluntarily to Kaphrao. And it's a respect thing. Okay. And the thing that changes it is kindness. Ultimately, kindness douses the fire. So we're going to time jump to when the morning after Kaphrao punches Fai in the face because Fai was being an idiot and trying to be a ghost and scare Kaphrao like they were kids. And Kaphrao, the black belt, literally decks her, which is fucking hilarious. And then Fai has the audacity to be like, how dare you? It's like, girl, you put yourself there. So the morning after she gets punched in the face, Fai picks up Kaphrao at her place, and they're in the car, and Kaphrao comments that Fai's bruise doesn't look too bad. And Fai's immediate reaction is to get super defensive and says, whose fault is that? And Kaphrao tries to defend herself, and when Fai keeps pushing, like, this is your fault, Kaphrao abruptly changes the subject and says, don't forget to apply ointment. It'll heal faster. And then, quote, Achman went quiet for a moment after Atitia's unexpectedly calm reply. She'd expected a snappy comeback, something to keep the argument going. But instead, she was met with something oddly gentle, laced with concern. It completely threw her off course, and she didn't know how to continue the fight. So that's the thing. Kaphrao is not behaving in a way that Fai expects her to behave. This is the water. This is why I compared her to Nam. It's very similar to the water, because in the water, what starts Nam and Lada's attraction is the fact that Nam cannot predict Lada, the chaos element. And she's like, what the hell is this? And so she obsessively thinks about her, because she can't figure her out. That's what's happening here, okay? Except these two have history. All right? And really, here, it takes one nice thing, like one nice comment from Kaphrao, and Fai's a complete disaster because they're in the car, and that's when Fai's like, we're doing something else, and she takes her to go to the bike shop to go get a new bike. And when Kaphrao is arguing that Fai's a spoiled rich kid wasting money, because she's like, oh my god, Fai, this is ridiculous. My old bike still worked. And Fai snitches on herself at the shop by responding, quote, working and working properly are not the same thing. Meaning, Kaphrao did one nice thing, and Fai's like, I need to get you a bike that works. And she takes her to go do it and, like, snitches that, like, the reason she threw the bike out is because she was worried about her, not because she was being an asshat. It just took one nice thing for her to, like, completely lose her composure and not know what the hell she's doing. Luckily, Kaphrao is in the mindset of, like, I don't trust anything you tell me. And so a lot of this, like, goes rightfully and understandably, goes right over her head. But, like, one kind word, Fai's a disaster. Now we're going to time jump over to Hua Hin, because the Hua Hin trip was a major transition point in Kaphrao and Fai's story. And notably, in the novel, this is the first gathering of all the cousins and the full complete Four Elements Wives Club. They're all there for this. Okay. And the crux of this whole thing is that Fai is struggling to figure out who adult Kaphrao is. Okay. So when it comes to Kaphrao, Fai says some weirdly sexist and unsurprisingly classist comments about Kaprao's clothing, where essentially she demands that Kaphrao joins the family dinner that night and lectures her about her clothing and says, quote, don't you have anything nice to wear? All I ever see you are in are overalls and polos. You're a girl. Try a skirt sometime. You look awful. If I bring you like this, they'll think I brought the help. Okay. Weirdly sexist, classist, which is not surprising. But again, the crux of this is that Fai cannot figure out who Kaphrao is now as an adult. Okay. Because she continues to think to herself, quote, as a kid, the little pest, meaning Kaphrao, used to wear sweet-colored skirts and dressed up like a princess because she liked fairy tales. Continue. Even though she didn't look the part, how had she turned out so different now? So again, Fai, the straightforward, brutally honest one, has no brain to mouth filter and just like says things. And the way they come out, it's like you have to translate the words she's saying. Okay. What she was saying with like, don't you have anything nice to wear is meaning like, why do you dress like this now? You didn't dress like this when we were kids. That's what she's saying. But then it comes out horrible. Like the execution is, again, good intention, horrible execution is like, fine. When it comes to speaking for at least half this book. Okay. Because again, she's a spoiled kid. Nobody puts her in her place, which Rose has a problem with. And I love her for that. Okay. Because then we get to the family dinner. Okay. And Rose, the troublemaker, Rose is one of the most unhinged characters in all of the 4 elements, which I didn't see coming, but like it's reinforced time and time again. And I think everybody knows it, which we'll get into later. But anyway, at dinner, she decides to stoke the fire and throw gasoline on it by saying to Kaphrao, "Are you Fai's girlfriend?" And Fai is, to quote her thoughts, quote, "totally scandalized by what she just overheard. What had Atitia said to make her cousin-in-law misunderstand so badly?" End quote. So, very revealing that Fai's first thought is paranoid as fuck because she's like, what did Kaphrao say to insinuate this? Not how could Rose jump to this conclusion on her own? She immediately blames Kaphrao for this, which sounds a whole hell of a lot like Aunt Punny's thinking, not necessarily Fai's natural thinking, because Fai's pretty smart, but like that was her first thought. That's very revealing the way she's paranoid. Okay. All right. So then Fai, the idiot, decides to, quote, clear things up by saying horrific things to Kaphrao in front of everyone. Okay. Which I will not repeat. So then Kaphrao rightfully leaves. And then the cousins very gently try to correct Fai's behavior and explain why it was bad. And then Rose enters the chat, the unhinged one, the feral Rose in the garden, okay, tells Fai off, like all the way off to fuck off. And also keeps going. And then it's like, when Din tries to interject and be like, why don't you be nice? She's the baby. And like, no. Rose is like, Din, don't stop me, Din. She's like, you, Nam, and Lam never call her out. And that's why she acts like a spoiled brat. If you talk to me like that, Din, I would dump you on the spot. And it's like mic drop from Rose, okay? and then one of my favorite thoughts in the whole book from Fai, who thinks, quote, leave it to Rose to deliver the final blow like a queen. Meanwhile, Blue's there. I just love this description that Rose is like the queen of this whole thing and is like willing to tell you to go fuck yourself in public. You gotta, Rose and Fai are a lot alike, but Rose is a little bit more in control of her thoughts, but like she's just as feral as Fai. And like truly, I love their friendship. I think their friendship is hilarious. It's honest is what it is. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm very sad. I'm sad they changed the way this went down in the series, but like this scene was a gem to read because I read it first and then, oh my god. Rose is so feral. I just love her. Okay, anyway. So Kaphrao, who excused herself, then goes for a walk to clear her head and then runs into 3 drunk dudes, okay? And they're looking to sexually assault her, essentially. And then Fai shows up alone, agitates the men, and then runs away with Kaphrao in classic Fai fashion, right? And it goes down the way it goes down in the series where you get the whole Fai has, taken care of Kaphrao. They've run away from danger before, that kind of stuff. What's different is that in the novel, the drunk men follow the women all the way back to the hotel. Okay. The drunk men don't give up that easily. And that's when Lam steps in. Lam, the ex-cop, steps in and de-escalates the whole situation. Okay, with the men. And then scolds Fai for being reckless. Notice, like Fai's father, immediately blames Fai for this. And Fai gets really embarrassed that her cousins are putting her down in front of Kaphrao and also just blaming her automatically. And then Kaphrao speaks up and says, quote, "It wasn't Achima's fault, really. It was me who let my guard down. I was lucky she came to help." And Fai gets defensive and responds, quote, "You be quiet. I didn't ask you to defend me." Because she's embarrassed in front of her cousins. That's really what that is. But like at the heart of it, like Fai does want Kaphrao to like defend her. But also Fai's like, we shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place because like this was really my fault. And like, anyway, she'd have to own a whole bunch of stuff that she doesn't know how to verbally talk about yet. So that's how you get like these quips like this from her. Okay. And the thing is, as this conversation happens, the cousins then pivot into pointing out how this isn't some anomaly, that Fai's been reckless all along, kind of thing. And Din, in this conversation, lets it drop that Fai once got into a fight in school and Acne had to take her out of class. Okay. And when Din drops this, which Fai does not want to open this can of worms, okay, Kaphrao puts together that and asks Fai, "Hey, did that happen when you were in second grade?" And Fai's like, "Yes, that was the only time this ever happened." And Kaphrao puts that together that like the time that Din was alluding to was when Fai beat up Kaprao's bullies to leave her alone. And so Fai got in trouble. And that was kind of like the big start of like the fracturing of Acne and Fai's relationship, or like the trust when it comes to Kaphrao, at least. Because there were other adults that are basically like, look, your daughter's acting out. Look, it's your daughter that's starting fights. And so that, I think, influenced how he perceived like, quote, fights, quarrels, things like that would happen between Kaphrao and Fai at their house, perhaps. And like, he just blamed her and like didn't listen to her side of the story. And Kaphrao never told him the truth of what Fai was doing. And so it created this like big misconception that had lasting consequences for their relationships until they go and repair them, basically. Then we're still at Hua Hin, okay? And it's the next day, all right? And the Four Elements Wife Club, they all meet. All four members are there. And the three official members are here to intervene for the prospective member, which is Kaphrao, okay? And they give Kaphrao a makeover, okay? And Rose is like the big cheerleader and probably the instigator of all of this. Okay, it's Rose. And she's cheering Kaphrao on. She's like, listen, you should dress up for you, okay? Quote, "So when we look in the mirror, we can feel proud of how we look, both inside and out," end quote. And Kaphrao reflects on what Rose has just told her, then takes a look in the mirror and feels excitement, and then says, "I am proud of myself." And like, what I absolutely love about this scene when they're all four of them are together is that I love that the other women build up Kaphrao and they give her this confidence in herself that like Fai was kind of whittling away by being an asshole. And they're like, "No, Kaphrao, this is a moment is about you and about you being happy and you being confident inside and out." And like, we see that in you. And I just love that the way they support her almost instantaneously. It's a very cute, sweet scene. And I'm sad the whole thing wasn't there in the show, but like, I'm glad it exists here. Okay. And then we get to the Fai seeing Kaphrao all kind of dressed up. And like the actual significance of that scene, it isn't just a, oh my God, she's hot moment. This is, which is true. But the scene means more than that, okay? Because the thing about Fai and Kaphrao's relationship, I think one of the reasons that I really love it, like their love story, the foundation of their love story is friendship. Because at the end of the day, like really what most of the book is about is Fai trying to figure out how to be friends with Kaphrao. Okay, like Kaphrao tried to be friends with Fai when they were young and it went horribly because of all the things. And then when they were adults, Fai's like, well, I expected you to want to be friends with me. Why don't you want to be friends with me? How do I be friends with you? I've never made a friend in my life. And like, that's half the battle. Okay. So it's this moment where she sees Kaphrao, okay, all dressed up. It is like, what is happening here is that Fai is seeing Kaphrao as an adult for the first time, because in her mind, she's like, why aren't you my childhood companion? Why are you different? Okay. Because here's what Fai thinks when she sees her, quote, from head to toe, the little troublemaker was completely made over, looking soft, sweet, and gentle. Something Aditya hadn't seen in the entire 15 years they'd known each other. The grown-up Aditya in front of her now gave off an entirely different feeling. Okay? Because Fai's like, who is this? It's like she's seeing her for the first time, kind of thing. And it's just like, wow. And then Lam tells Fai to close her mouth or a fly might fly in, which was hilarious and absolutely something Lam would say during this monumental moment to make it more ridiculous. Speaking of ridiculous, after that, the cousins then chat about how ridiculous Fai is. Okay, because she's obviously drooling over Kaphrao. Okay, so Din says, quote, Fai might seem cheerful around us, but deep down, you, Lam and Nam, know Fai isn't good at expressing her feelings. So even the cousins are aware of this. And then the cousins also admit that they try to give Fai as much love as possible because Fai lost her mother and her father is distant with his affections, which is really sweet to hear them confirm kind of what I suspected, which is that like Aunt Pani, like the cousins try to step up and be like, Fai's lonely. Fai doesn't have the relationship with her father that we have. And so they try to love her more and support her more. And like, hence how you get the dinner scene earlier where Rose is like, you guys never like discipline her. It's literally what Aunt Pani does. Okay. And Rose is the parent in the room who's like, you need to like correct her for real. Otherwise, like you get this monster that I'm witnessing. This is not good. So again, actions have consequences, good intention, bad outcome. But you gotta love everybody who's just, I'm just trying to love you. I'm not perfect. Even the cousins here, they made a mistake with how they coddled Fai. Like they also enabled her behavior in a way. Again, good intention, bad outcome. Okay, but the enemies to lovers at some point, that story has to achieve the balance. We have to get the respect, and then we pivot. Okay, and the pivot point happens with the first time Fai yields willingly to Kaphrao, not because somebody told her to. So, after she sees Kaphrao all dolled up, Fai then proceeds to follow Kaphrao around and teases her nonstop because she wants Kaprao's attention, and this is the only way she knows how to get it. Okay, eventually Kaphrao is so exhausted by this that she tells Fai to go back to the party and leave her the fuck alone. And when Fai refuses, Kaphrao mentions that she knows Fai has always added out for her. And she's like, I'm unsurprised by this bullshit because you don't even like me. And then they stare at each other in an alpha staring contest kind of way. Not in a I'm falling in love with you. It's like I'm asserting my dominance over you kind of way. And quote, they held each other's gaze for a long moment until, surprisingly, Achimo was the one who looked away first. Usually neither of them would back down. And Fai, in her inner monologue, reveals that in that moment, in this conversation, she was trying to keep her temper in check. Okay. So she's trying to change in this scene. She's trying to be better after it. She had this massive intervention from her family who's like, what the fuck are you doing? You need to stop being a wild card and like get a brain to mouth filter. Here she is trying to create a brain to mouth filter. And like in this situation where like Kaprao's like, leave me the fuck alone. Like, I understand you don't like me. And Fai cannot be like, tell her otherwise because she's not there yet. She looks away. Like it's a deference thing. This is a body language thing being like, you win. I'm not going to keep fighting with you. This ends. I'm choosing to end it and you come out the winner. Which Fai never does. Okay, she always has to have the last word. She has to have the last letter. She's a child. It's childish behavior. But here is the first sign of maturity. It's the first sign of like, I'm listening to the words you're saying, Kaphrao. I'm trying not to react and be defensive. and I will, like, you win. That's what this is saying. Then that is the first step in the enemies to lovers thing. It says the respect is starting to form. The trust is starting to be rebuilt. That's another way to look at it. Trust. Okay. And the thing is, like, this is the starting point, really, for Fai's transformation. Okay. Fai's growth throughout this entire story. And what I absolutely love about how this story was written by Salmon, as I think this story was probably the best paced story because Fai's growth is subtle, and this is not an overnight drastic thing that happens. It takes many chapters for Fai to fully mature and change, okay? Which is realistic. There is no switch that goes off and suddenly she knows how to communicate. Suddenly she's an attentive girlfriend. Suddenly she's a better person. No, like, this is a process. It's going to take time. She's stubborn and hot-headed, and learning how to be an adult, like, that takes years. That takes time. And so the pacing of this felt very natural, and it was a good story to read because the changes are all there. It's just the progression is so slow and subtle in the way it builds, and it's just amazing. Okay. It's one of the things I absolutely adore about this story. So after Hua Hin, they go back to Surat, where they live. And Fai picks up Kaphrao the next day and opens her door, which Fai never does. Fai's usually in the car, is like honking the horn. No, she goes to pick her up for work. She opens the door, okay? And Kaphrao is like, whoa, maybe Fai's a decent human being. And then when she turns around, she pauses to, like, and has this thought, because she's like, what the fuck is happening? Wait a minute. And then she turns around to thank Fai. Her mistake was pausing to have thoughts, okay? Because Fai misinterprets that. That's what she does. When she goes to thank Fai, Fai cuts her off and says, close the fucking door yourself, I'm not your maid. Because she's defensive, and Kaphrao didn't give her enough time. She's like, damn it, this didn't work. Like, it was 3 seconds, Fai. She does this over and over and over again, where she misinterprets silence as rejection because she doesn't know what she's doing. Like, she doesn't know what she's doing. She's trying so hard, but, like, part of the problem with Fai is, like, she's genuinely navigating this by herself, and she's a disaster, and she's young, and, like, so it's gonna be messy while she figures it out. And she's lucky that Kaphrao is just as fucking stubborn as she is and refuses to give up. And so because of that, Kaphrao refuses to give up on Fai also. And so Fai needs somebody like that to be just as resilient as she is. And that's what makes them a good match. And that's what made this process work between her and Kaphrao. Okay, so next stop, they go to the private island to do work stuff. And something that was not in the novel, I mean, not in the series, is all the caretaking shit Fai does while they're on this island that completely goes over Kaprao's head. Okay, so, because again, this was unplanned, them going there. And so they're walking around the first day, and Fai shoves her own hat, takes her own hat off, shoves it onto Kaprao's head with no warning, no dialogue. And then when Kaprao's like, what the... Because according to Fai, quote, the weather's hot. I don't want to wear it. It's annoying. Because Kaphrao is, like, exposed, and Fai's like, oh, let me put the... And it's just, like, the way she executes things are hilarious. Okay, and then Kaphrao thinks, sure, it was hot, and you'd normally wear a hat to protect your scalp from the sun, but what kind of person just shoves a hat onto somebody else's head without asking and without the slightest gentleness? And then... this is before they even get on the island. This isn't getting on the boat. And then the next thing that happens after Kaphrao has this thought is that Fai, like, marches to the back of the boat and throws murderous glares at Kaphrao. Probably because Kaphrao didn't thank her for shoving a hat on her head, okay? But, like, Kaphrao is so confused, and, like, this is so confusing if you're Kaphrao. She's like, what the fuck is she doing? Like, suddenly Fai just starts acting super weird with no, like, weirder, with no explanation whatsoever. And it's like this hot and cold kind of thing, because, like, Fai doesn't know what she's doing, and she's trying, but then she's thin-skinned, and the minute she doesn't get immediately thanked, or, like, she doesn't get the reinforcement that what she did was right, she's like, fuck, it was wrong. Like, why can't you just, like, why is this not working? And, like, so she just goes and stews in the back, and Kaprao's like, what just happened? Okay. And after I read this, okay, especially the description of how Fai executes putting the hat on Kaphrao's head. It was at that moment in the book that I realized that Fai is somehow more awkward than Din and Nam combined, okay? And that was honestly something I did not see coming in this story, that she's somehow worse at this and more awkward than her most awkward cousins. Like, you've met Nam and Dim. How is Fai worse at this? Like, it's so funny. She's the most awkward out of all of them, and it makes me laugh every single time because I thought Nam was gonna be the worst, or like Din's proposals were awkward, but no, Fai's the worst one. She's the absolute worst one out of all of them. And I really didn't see that coming. And it makes me laugh every time. And her awkwardness is one of the reasons I think this book is absolutely hysterical, because she's abrasive, yeah, sure, but she's so awkward about it that it's just fucking hilarious. And Kaphrao's always like, what the hell are you doing? Because this is so weird. You're being weird. The thing about it is that, like, in contrast, Kaphrao is, I described her as like kind of like being like Lam in a way, where she's a very easygoing person and makes friends super easily, which is the opposite of Fai, but like in a partnership, that works out well, right? So it became very apparent to me here, because when they arrive to the island, Kaphrao is so enamored and charmed by everyone and everything on this island. And Fai thinks that guinea pig just got along with everyone so easily. Her father, Boonsong, Uncle Yod, Aunt Noom, anyone really. Everyone except her. So Fai notices that about Prow, like that's a really good thing, but she's like, why? So why can't she be friends with me? Like, what's wrong with me? So there's a reflection of like, why can't we be friends, kind of thing, and it's like it's almost like reads as like jealousy from Fai, that she's like, why can't you just be my friend? I don't know how to make you my friend, or like I don't know why we're not friends. Okay, and then this part I thought was interesting. So they get to the hut where they're going to stay. Lam and Blue's hut. And Kaphrao casually drops the name Blue. Not Princess Blue, not Princess Catherine, none of that. She calls her Blue. And Fai flips out that Kaphrao would have the audacity to refer to the princess so casually. But then Kaphrao is like, she told me to call her that? And then Fai becomes really jealous that, like, again, she made friends so easily with even the princess, okay? And I thought this reaction was interesting from Fai, because it reads as like possessive, okay, that she would be so reactive to Kaphrao being familiar with Blue on a like language basis. So like it could, on the surface level, could read as like Fai's warning to be like, respect my family. Could be that. But I think it's more so that, like, I think this is a glimpse into how Fai values people who allow her to be close to them, because she's close with Blue at this point. And Fai becomes incredibly protective of the people that she loves. Just go back to the Earth with her very first introduction in this entire series. The way Fai comes in like a fucking hurricane to be like, Din, how dare you risk your life? I'm going to marry her instead so that you're not in danger. Like, that's who Fai is. She's so fiercely protective of people that she loves. So her reaction here, I think, reads more like her version of love, kind of thing. And then I think the other layer to the onion layer, right? The other layer to this is that I think on some level, Fai is jealous that Kaphrao became so close to her family so easily, when Fai's the type of person, it takes her a while to warm up to people. And I think that there's like there's jealousy on multiple levels going on here when it comes to Fai, because her relationship with Kaphrao is complicated. And I thought this was an interesting instance of like Fai's character and revealing of how she loves and like that kind of thing. So that was interesting. Next, I want to talk about one of my favorite scenes, which is the second umbrella incident. Okay, there are two that happened in the novel. The first one happens in the series. That's when Fai gets punched in the face, it's raining, and she takes Kaphrao home and like gives her umbrella. Okay, but the better one, the superior one, in my opinion, is the one that happens on the island. Okay, so obviously they're stranded because there's a storm. So it's raining the first night that they're there. And Fai commandeers Lom Blue's matching pajamas and takes Prow to the detached bathroom. And by takes, I mean Fai grabs the one umbrella, storms off until Kaphrao chases her, and then holds the umbrella when she gets there and they walk there together. Okay. She takes her there in Fai's way. Okay. So then when they arrive to the bathroom, this goes down similarly where Fai tells Kaphrao to go first and hurry up about it. And Kaprao's like, listen, you go first so that I'm not rushed in the bathroom. And Fai refuses because this is her version of being a gentlewoman. And then she's like, I'm going to sit down, okay, under this overhang. Okay, so I don't need the umbrella. And then she closes it. Okay. Quote. That's when Kaphrao noticed one of Fai's shoulders was completely soaked. Even though Fai had been the one holding the umbrella, she somehow managed to get drenched on one side, while Kaphrao, who had simply shared the umbrella, was dry as a bone, because Fai was the real clueless one. So essentially, first of all, you're both clueless in this scene, and that's why it's funny, okay? Because Kaprao's like, wow, Fai's so stupid you can't even hold an umbrella properly. When in reality, Fai was showing she cared by, okay, without demanding any credit for her actions, because usually Fai's like, okay, I'm the one that did that. Acknowledge I did a good thing. And then Kaprao's like, you're so fucking annoying, okay? Because she just wants to be validated that she's not always a bad person, okay? And so she's annoying about it, the way she approaches things, where she's like, thank me explicitly for what I did. Because I just want you to know I'm not a bad person. I want you to remember that about me. But here, Fai just does this nice thing, doesn't draw attention to it. Kaphrao notices it incidentally, but then Kaphrao, whose first reaction is to be like, Fai's an idiot, not, oh, was she trying to do something that does not even cross Kaprao's mind. So like everybody misses the point in this scene. But my point is that it happened, and I'm proud of Fai for doing it. Okay. Other scene that's not in the series that gets overlooked that I love is their first dinner on the island. So what's important about this dinner is that you're in Fai's head, and Fai notices and is starting to recognize that Kaphrao is not who she thought she was. Like she had her own misconceptions because she also jumped to conclusions, right? Like everybody's doing that in this show or this story. Sorry. So Fai like went into this thinking that there's no way in hell Kaphrao, who's been 15 years in Bangkok in fancy boarding schools, would ever be able to survive on this rural island with barely electricity and things like that. Because she thinks Kaphrao is picky, spoiled, chasing wealth, and is going to hate this island. But when they're having dinner, Fai notices that Kaphrao is genuinely enjoying like the home-cooked food, the people, all of it. And like one thing that really struck me was like the dinner, like the home-cooked food that like Bua's mom made. Because like realistically, before she comes back to Surat and comes back to Fai's like family estate, like when was the last time she had a home cooked meal? Like Acne sent her away 15 years ago, and she's been away in boarding school. Like sure he comes to visit her, but like was he cooking for her? Probably not, right? So like having a food that was made with love, probably a huge rarity in Kaprao's life. And I think that she is also lonely and, shaped by her trauma. So I think that that's part of why she was really charmed by the island. But Fai is like seeing her in a new light and being like, huh, maybe you're not a gold digger. Like maybe like you're like me kind of thing. Because like Fai also enjoys this. And so Fai, while they're on the island, proceeds to continues to do actions, right, that ensure Kaphrao gets what she wants. But Fai does it in her own childish way. The way it's again, good intention, poor execution, bad outcome. Actually, the outcomes are okay, but like the execution is a mess. So essentially, they're fighting over food, kind of thing. And Fai is like, no, you need to eat a lot. Quote, because you'll need energy to keep causing trouble. That's Fai basically saying, eat all you want, dear. Like, you have to like translate what she's saying. And then they get into this competition over squid eggs, which Fai starts, okay, because they're Kaphrao's favorite. So Fai's like, I'm gonna take these all for myself. And she did that hoping and correctly assuming Kaphrao was going to take the bait and fight Fai over them because she's like, those are my favorite. I'm not going to you eat them all. So then because she's like, oh my God, Fai's going to I'm going to starve if I don't act now. And so she takes them all. And then there's a squid left over. And then at the end, you switch to Kaphrao's point of view and she notices that there's 3 pieces of squid. Okay. And they were fighting over that too. And that she's like, huh, if I took the smaller piece and then there's a third, right? So they each took a piece. There's one left over. And if I took the smallest one for herself, so Kaphrao will get the bigger one, and there's one left over. And Kaprao's like, shit, we're gonna have to fight for this. But then Fai puts her fork down to indicate she's done eating. So that's another time that Fai subtly yields to Kaphrao, and she's like, you win. Without saying it, she does it with her actions to be like, you win, Kaphrao. It's yours. I'm yielding this to you. I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to continue the argument. I'm not going to keep the bickering going. I'm going to let you have what you want because you want it. So it's Fai doing it in her own way. So the Hua Hin is like the transition point, and then the island is where you see Fai change her actions really subtly and in ways that don't draw attention to what she's doing. She's just doing it. And it goes completely over Kaphrao's head, understandably, because Kaphrao's like, you always have it out to get me. This must be a trick. Like, she's paranoid because Fai taught her to be paranoid. Because Aunt Penny taught Fai. It's like this like domino effect kind of thing of paranoia. All right. Then we get Kaphrao taking care of drunk Fai, which is amazing and is not a one-to-one in the series. So essentially, when they get into the drinking contest at the with the elders, essentially, and then Boonsong's like, all right, you gotta take Fai home. And initially, Kaphrao's like, can you take her? Because like, I don't want to have to get her all the way back to that hut. Also, I don't want to take care of her. So she tries to pawn her off on Boonsong, which is pretty smart. But he declines because he's like, listen, I know Fai. If she wakes up in a strange place, she's gonna freak the fuck out. So you have to take her back to the hut because that's where she expects to wake up. Also, she's my boss. And then he's like, I'll send my daughter to help you. So Bua and Kaphrao carry Fai back to the hut. And they get there, and then Bua's like, all right, she's been drinking. It's gross outside because like we're on an island, it's hot. You need to give her a sponge bath before she goes to sleep. And then probably like, no, how about you do it, Bua? And Bua's like, nah, been there, done that, got my heart broken by Lam. I'm not doing this again. Also, it's Fai. So you do it. And so she gets like the water and all the stuff, gives it to Kaphrao, and then she pieces the fuck out of there. So Kaphrao's like, God damn it. Like, she doesn't want to, but she does it. So then she tries to give, quote, drunk Fai a sponge bath. And Kaphrao struggles, quote, thanks to the uncooperative flailing of the supposedly adult woman. And you get the real reason for what the hell's going on here in the special chapters, but Fai is not drunk right now. She did this because she doesn't know how to like hug Kaphrao or tell her she likes her or like be nice. So she's like, I'll pretend to be drunk. And then use that as an excuse to like take this to the next level or like express myself better. Cause like, if anything, she'll be like, you're drunk and we can forget about it. Cause Fai's thin skinned and scared. Okay. So understandable. So she's not drunk, okay? But she's flailing like an idiot because she's flustered. And she's like, this is not going the way I wanted it to. So she's fighting Kaphrao, who's trying to like change her and all this stuff, which is the visual of that is just absolutely hilarious. Okay. So then Fai, who doesn't know how to communicate, pulls Kaphrao into a hug. And Kaphrao describes this as, quote, a heat that seemed to spread into her own body, raising her temperature too. So feelings. Heat, again, is it hate? Is it love? Is it both? I love that, again, this is the fire, but we keep bringing up heat, but heat can mean many things, and it works on all levels here. because Kaphrao's super annoyed by Fai right in the scene, rightfully so, because she's being an idiot. Okay, and that's when we get the flashback into when they were close as kids, and Kaphrao would, quote, sneakily cuddle with Fai, and Kaphrao was so confident that Fai never knew about this. And spoiler is that Fai knew the whole time that Kaphrao was doing this. But what's important about this scene when Kaphrao is describing this, she describes cuddling with Fai as, quote, the one position that made her feel the warmest and the safest, even though Fai never once hugged her back, ... She also never once threw Kaphrao out of the room. So it's like a hint that like Fai knew and never chased her away. Because like Fai knew that like Kaphrao was scared of the dark and lonely and like all this stuff. And ultimately like Fai let her stay. But it's revealing the way there's that warmth again. And she felt safe, even though like with Fai, even though Fai was a little monster sometimes. Like, so it does show you like their kind of connection, and it kind of fleshes out like that feeling is coming back, that warmth, now that they're physically close in this like it's the first time Fai hugs her, of course, has to be this ridiculous Fai pretending to be drunk scenario, which is ridiculous. But the feelings that Kaphrao is having in this scene are real and important in relation to like when they were kids, kind of thing. Okay. Now, their little disappearing trick to the private island does not go unnoticed by Aunt Honey. So, of course, she blames Kaphrao for this, the fact that weather happens, and decides to punish her. That's where you get the weeding in the yard thing. Okay. And in the novel, Fai is tipped off by Aunt Noom, and Noom is like this housekeeper that has been working for Fai's family for a really long time, that used to take care of Kaphrao when they were young. Well, they interacted when she was younger, and so she's kind of like the housemaid where Kaphrao was living. And so she sees this goes down, runs and tells Fai, because Bua's on the island in the novel. And that was the only scene with Bua, was when they were on the island. So Fai goes and helps, and then when they're done, Fai tries to give Kaphrao advice, and she says, quote, all I'm saying is you've got the maturity now. You're not a little kid who has to follow every order blindly anymore. And Kaphrao says, what is that supposed to mean? And Fai yells, you're such a dummy. So in the series, they flesh this out in episode 5, but translation, what Fai is saying is that she wants Kaphrao to speak up for herself and not get taken advantage of by anyone, including herself. And Kaphrao, the thing is that Kaphrao is very aware of her status. And she's aware that, like, she's not actually Acne's daughter. She's aware that the privileges that she has here and, like, her education were all gifts given to her. And she's like, I'm thankful for the gifts, but I'm aware that, like, you know, I need to repay them, like my father taught me. And she's like, I'm going to stay in my lane. Okay. And so when it comes to Aunt Pani, she's like, I'm aware that she is an elder in this house and somebody I owe respect to. You know, I'm not family, but I live here and I'm given privileges. And then like Kaphrao is very like aware of all of those things. And so she hears this from Fai and is like, it's not advice she would take. Okay, because she's very aware that like Fai is the like heir apparent. She can do whatever the hell she wants because she's the heir apparent of this household. And Kaphrao's like, I'm not you. That's the thing. And then, but Fai, I think, is also aware, it kind of catches on and basically continues. And she's like, listen, if you don't want to do something, like, just say no and I will handle the rest. Meaning, like, I'll defend you with my status kind of thing. The problem is, like, at this stage, Kaphrao isn't sure she can really trust Fai, but it's big of Fai because Fai is again trying to make amends. Like she's trying to be different. She's trying to do what she did when they were kids. When she's like, Kaphrao, you need to stand up for yourself. And she's like, the final boss for you is Pani, basically. And she's like, you can't let her take advantage. Like, you don't let me get away with shit anymore. Don't let her get away with shit. And Fai's like, if you're worried about the status thing, That's what I'm here for. And it's big of Fai to even say that, but like Kaphrao can't take that yet because she's like, I don't really trust you because what's to stop you from like throwing me under the bus, siding with Pani? Like then you'll get rid of me. And like anyway, so she's still kind of in that paranoid headspace, but big of Fai to say it. So then after this, Fai starts making more of a concerted effort to be friends with Kaphrao. Because again, that is the basis of their relationship. It's friendship. And so after this weeding incident, Fai insists on following Kaphrao back to her place and like walks her home. And I love the way this goes down because Fai is trying to take it to the next level in like friendship. And so she abruptly mentions, she's like, Kaphrao, you've told me you've never been anywhere in Surat before, right? And Kaprao's like, yeah. So she's like, well, where do you want to go? And Kaprao's like, I don't know. I literally know nothing about this place. So Fai's like, oh my God, Google it and tell me where you want to go. And then Fai's like, and she's like, what? And then Fai's like, I'm free this weekend, by the way. So this is like Fai trying to ask her out, or like not necessarily ask her out, just be like, what do you want to do? What are your interests? I will enable it. Like, and I'll take you there. Let's go do a thing. Let's go see a place. But she's weird about how she actually executes the thing. And then Kaphrao is rightfully super suspicious of whatever the hell this is. And she's like, okay, Fai, you're free. Like, entertain yourself. Go find something to do. What the hell are you telling me this? And then Fai's speechless that, like, Kaphrao doesn't get what she's trying to do because she's not a Fai whisperer yet. And so Fai's like, I'll never be friends with you, little pest. And she says it out loud because, like, to me, that's super revealing because, like, she's just trying to be friends with her. She just doesn't know how. And so Kaphrao kind of thinks about this and later on mentions to Fai, she's like, okay, well, if you're serious about that, I want to go to the suspension bridge. That means a lot to me. And then Fai starts teasing her, obviously, until Kaphrao begs Fai to take her. And then, of course, Fai has to be an idiot about it. And it's like, oh my God, just don't dress like the help. And it's like, Fai, okay, sure. Like, so some things don't change. Because again, she's like, this is going to be a nice thing. She just needs a translator, okay? She just needs a translator. Okay, and then, of course, Fai, they're planning to do this thing. And then the night before, her aunt's like, Fai, I need you to take my friend's daughter out for lunch. And Fai wants to say no, and then in her head, she thinks, but if Pani ever found out she turned down her friend's daughter just to keep plans with Kaphrao, it wouldn't just be Fai who took the heat. It would be the younger one too. So Fai, knowing her aunt is going to immediately blame Kaphrao for this, Fai instead decides to give in to what Aunt Pani wants, quote, just to avoid conflict. So this is something that comes up over and over again with Fai and her aunt. And I think this is also what's going on, honestly, with Acne and his daughter, is that they're in this mess. No one knows how to navigate it. And so people are just trying not to rock the boat sometimes. And Fai's like, this is hella problematic, but it could get worse if I say no. After she just spent all this time being like, Kaphrao, say no when you don't want to do things. Sometimes saying no has consequences, and like, here's Fai recognizing that in this particular scenario. So she chooses the path that will protect Kaphrao and also make her aunt happy at the same time. So then she goes to tell Kaphrao. And what's interesting in the novel is that when Fai is telling her this, Kaphrao picks up on the fact that Fai seems uncomfortable, which is interesting that she's able to kind of like genuinely read Fai's like body language at this stage. And Kaphrao was rightfully really disappointed because she like planned to wear her special dress that she reserves for like special occasions, and she like was like, I am gonna pick something that she can't complain about. And like, so Proud put a lot of effort into this and was excited. So then Fai goes on this date her aunt sends her on, And this was one of the fucking funniest things because, like, she hates new people. Okay. We've established that. She hates being told what to do. So this was going to be a disaster no matter what. Okay. And the only thing that makes this happen is the fact that her aunt asked her to do this. But Aunt Punny was just like, go have lunch. And Pi's like, okay, that's what you said. She could have been a good lawyer based on this scene. So some things so Fi obviously is a complete ass during this whole fucking thing. But what's really hilarious and different than the show is that Fi, before she leaves the house, is in this outfit Aunt Penny approves of. Because remember, Aunt wants what's best for Fi. She's setting her up with this woman who's a good status woman, friend of her friend, or daughter of her friend, and approves of Fi's outfit, and Fi leaves. Fi then proceeds to change out of that outfit into t-shirts and jeans with holes in them so that she deliberately doesn't match her day. So she's like making it visually clear. She's like, we are not on the same page, just so you know, without having to say things. She's like, I could care less about being here. Like visually, she does that. And then she proceeds to do all the things on the date where she's like on her phone the whole time until Jaripa, the date, is like, are you working? And then Fi's like, no. And she flat out tells her, there's somewhere else I'd rather be right now. But it's fucking hilarious. The fact that she like put all this effort into sabotaging this date, like more so than just being an asshole. It was hilarious. Okay. Then they go to the suspension bridge. Okay. So the reason they end up there is because it's a place that holds special memories with Kaphrao and her father. And she has a photo of her and her father at this bridge. And it's like I think she mentions that having the photo and keeping it throughout time made her feel less lonely. Also, the photo she has with Fi as a child, same thing, but she wanted to revisit this place in the photo. And then they get there, okay, and Fi is taking her around this area as if she's a local. And then Prow's like, wow, do you come here often? You're acting like a local. And Fi's like, I've literally never been here in my life, okay? And she's like, that's what the internet's for, dummy. And I love this line because you don't get the scene in the book, but it implies that Fi looked into this and was like thoughtfully planning this whole thing out, even though she's like never been here or like never really spent time here. So it's a glimpse into how thoughtful she actually is and how she's the type of person that will like thoroughly research everything and like not draw attention to the fact that she did that. She's just going to be ready so that Kaphrao has a good time. Like, good girlfriend trait. But Kaphrao doesn't see it that way. She's just like fire acting fucking weird. And she asks her, and she's like, why haven't you been picking fights with me like you usually do? And then Fi says, don't think so badly of me. Because again, she's trying to be like, I'm just trying to show you that like I'm not who you think I am. Because Fi had the realization that like Kaphrao is not who she thought she was. She spent so many years thinking badly of Kaphrao and realized by like getting out of that headspace, getting out of the environment of her own house, hence like that island. Okay, it's like Love Island. Anytime they go there, it's the elements go there. It's like an escape from reality, okay? Because like their families are not there, like the weight of the world is not there. If you're Lam Blue, all that kind of stuff. It's a reprieve location where they can just be themselves, and that's kind of what was happening for Fai and Kaphrao. But like it was not; they weren't on the same page about it. It was Fai seeing Kaphrao in a new light, kind of thing, and being like, "Wow, you really aren't who I thought you were all this time. Like you're not this selfish person that I thought you were. You're not like." Spoiled, you're none of those things. And so Fi is now determined for Kaphrao to also like get rid of the misconceptions she has about her also. So that's part of why she's doing it, all of this. And I think that's why this line was very important, where she's like, don't automatically think I'm bad. Like see that I can do good things, kind of thing. I'm more nuanced than that. The thing I absolutely love the most about their time at the bridge is the conversation when they're bonding. I love what they bond over. So at first they start talking about Kaphrao's father, okay, because the whole reason they're here is because This is where he took her, and she has good memories. And so Kaphrao starts wondering, like, I hope he's doing, well in like the afterlife or whatever. And then Fai's like, well, I wonder if he's met my mother. And then says, quote, because if they did, at least they'd have someone to talk to. They wouldn't be lonely. Which is Fai projecting because she's lonely and wishes she had a friend. And that's also her projecting her situation with Kaphrao. She's like, I hope when we meet again, we can be friends and not be lonely. So love that slip. Fai snitches on herself a lot. But it goes over Kaprao's head. But not this one. This particular line sticks with her because Kaphrao thinks, though the words sounded casual, the words being what Fai just said, with no deeper meaning laced into them, Kaphrao could still feel the quiet warmth in Achima's way of comforting her. So she recognizes in that moment that Fai is saying this as a comforting thing. Like she recognizes Fai's motivation. And it's not she's trying to rub it in my face. You know what I mean? It's not that reflexive like Fai is doing this to tease me. Fai is doing this with an ulterior motive. Kaphrao recognizes and like lets herself see very clearly that Fai is doing this for a good reason and like feels the feeling behind it. And I think that's what adds to it. And then the conversation about Kaprao's father transitions into a conversation about acne. This is also really great. Where Fai continues about her mother and she's like, I know my mother loved me even though I can't remember her. And Kaphrao agrees and she says, yeah, just like the way your father loves you. And Fai gets defensive because this is a sore subject with her. And she says, you already stole all of my dad's love and now you're rubbing it in. And Kaphrao says, I'm serious. He loves you so much. If you could just let go of your resentment and open your heart a little, you'd see, just like I've always seen it. So it's Kaphrao basically saying, like, I was never in a competition for you over your dad. You misinterpreted that. Like, your father loves you. Nobody can take that away from you. And Fai responds, I don't want to talk about this. It's boring. And Kaphrao lets it go because she senses that this is a sensitive topic and Fai needs time. She's not ready to talk about this. And I love the conclusion of that conversation here because like it's a Kaphrao being able to kind of like interpret Fai and like read her and be like, she opened up to me, but I'm not going to push her right now on this. Like she's not ready yet. And this was a really great bonding moment. It was very real. It clearly demonstrates the fact that they have things in common. And when they are left alone without those outside influences, like these two could have bonded over this as kids. You know what I mean? Over the fact that like they don't have their mothers. They have their fathers mean a lot to them. And like they both have lost a parent. But they were never given that opportunity because they were poisoned against each other. But like here it is. It's like this is it's never too late kind of scene. Like it was never too late for them to have this conversation. And in fact, it's probably better now because they're more mature about, more mature period, and they've had more distance from the deaths, to be able to have this conversation the way they're having it. So, all right. After this conversation, they do one last thing before they leave the bridge, which is they take their first photo together in 15 years. So Kaphrao asks, this is hilarious. Kaphrao asks Fai to take a photo of her. She's like, look, Fai, make sure you get this heart-shaped mountain in the background. And I love this because like that's part of like why she loves this bridge. And I imagine as the little girl who loved fairy tales and loves romance, that she could see the heart, in the mountain, and that made her happy that her and her father had that like heart in the background. Fai is a literal person, okay? So when she gives her the thing and Fai's like, what heart? What the fuck are you talking about? Those are mountains. And then Krau's like, oh my God, like basically use your imagination, Fai, what the hell? And Fai doesn't see it until when they revisit this later and she's like, oh my God, the heart. Like, yeah. But anyway, I think it's funny. It says a lot about their personalities. But anyway, she's like, make sure you get this. I want a memento that I'm back here. And again, Fai is literal, and this conversation proves it because Kaphrao asks Fai for a quote, half body shot, please. And Fai's like, okay. and gives Kaphrao the phone. And she's like, Fai, this is just my lower half. Because, like, she's literal. She's like, that's what you told me to do. So, which is hilarious. And the show did not do that. But honestly, this photo thing was so funny the way it goes down. The show went for like the sweet romantic route, which is not wrong, but like this is hilarious. And I think fits them extremely well, this whole scene. Because, okay, because eventually Fai is not a little asshole and she like takes a real photo. Okay. And then Kaphrao asks Fai to take one with her. So Kaprao's the one that asks, and Fai is completely stunned that Kaphrao asks her. And then before Kaphrao can take it back, Fai's like, I'll take the photo because like your arms are too short and this is gonna be a disaster. And then Kaprao's like, sure, whatever, Fai. And then Fai proceeds to take a number of embarrassing photos where Kaphrao is not ready. And like Fai's laughing her ass off at this. And then Kaphrao takes a photo where Fai looks unflattering. And it's just absolutely hilarious. And Kaprao's thoughts about the photos they take, it sums it up really well, where she says, or she thinks, it's not exactly the kind of picture other people would frame, was it? And I love that because, like, they are not other people. Like, that's why I love this story so much. They're not other people. Like, they don't march to the beat of like your typical romance drum here. Like, they're so unique and like they have their own weird relationship going on and they love their weird relationship. Okay. And like, this is their relationship. It's teasing each other out of love. And so, like, of course, their first couples photo together is going to be ridiculous because, like, they're ridiculous. So I thought that this worked really well for who they are and like who they are as a couple and like the fact that they're both like this and like, yeah, most people would not frame these ridiculous photos, but she's like, we will, because we love, this is our relationship. And so I just love it. It just, that's how unique they are. I love it. All right, so after the suspension bridge, Penny finds out that Prow basically went on a date with Fai, and Fai was a complete asshat to her friend's daughter. So, which she probably blamed Prow for. I can't remember, to be honest. But this is gonna. We haven't gotten to. I haven't seen this in the series yet, but this is definitely gonna be different. And this was some fucked up fuck shit. And honestly, though, I think it works. So, what happens is that Aunt Honey demands that Kaphrao play the servant to her guests. Okay. And Kaphrao wants to refuse, but decides to stay in her lane to avoid conflict. Okay. But things eventually get out of hand when Pani demands that Kaphrao crawl over to her on her hands and knees like an enslaved person. So I don't think North Star is going to go this route because this seems incredibly offensive. Just reading it, I was like, this has to be offensive. But she's basically like, deprave yourself so much because I said so. That's how much I hate you and want to punish you for hanging out with Fai. Okay. And Kaphrao comes this close, like so close to refusing, and is about to give in when Fai barges in and stops this by choosing to start a conflict with her aunt because, quote, Fai's thoughts, quote, as much as she respected her elders, when something crossed the line, she would never let anyone be bullied to the point of having to give up their own dignity. So Fai comes in and is like, this is fucked up, is basically her thought. She's like, I don't care who you are. This is, auntie, this is fucked. Okay. And Fai continues to kind of like, in the moment, what she thinks about this conversation, this whole thing is that, quote, what Aunt Pani did was out of line and disrespectful to Kaphrao. That made her both furious and disappointed. Her feelings were in such disarray that if she had stayed any longer, she might have said something to deeply hurt her aunt and wouldn't have been able to stop herself. So, Fai in this situation, again, maturity, where she comes in there is pissed. And then also, like, I can't believe my aunt did this. But recognizes that like she's not in a state to talk. And so she like grabs Kaphrao and they just get out of there. She's like, I'm gonna make it worse if I start talking. So she leaves. Okay. But like here's the deal when it comes to this whole situation. It's like I feel like there's trauma again at the root of this whole thing, okay? Because again, Fai and Pani are both, shaped by the loss of Fai's mother, okay? And I think that loss hit Aunt Pani a lot harder than it did Fai because Fai doesn't remember. And I think it made Pani deeply afraid of losing Fai because that's the only family she has left. Like she doesn't really consider acting to be her family. Like, yeah, they're in-laws or whatever, but like Fai's her blood, right? So she's afraid of losing Fai because she lost her sister suddenly and unexpectedly. She was like, and here comes Kaphrao. And Fai's lying about it. And she's like, what if I'm going to lose her to you? Okay. And so I think that's really at the heart of this. And then Fai is also has those abandonment issues and is also afraid of hurting her aunt. Like that's the one in her mind. She's like, this is the person that loves me the most. So I also don't want to lose, like, they don't want to lose each other. So it's like part of the avoidance here and like why Pani's acting out. But like, this is where it comes to a head kind of thing where Fai's like, I can't ignore this. This is fucked up. This incident is not just a turning point with Aunt Pani, it's also a turning point between Fai and Kaphrao. So after she grabs Kaphrao and rushes her out of there, Kaphrao yells at Fai, let me go first. You're gripping me so tightly it hurts. And Fai says, I didn't mean to. So this is the fact that Fai was holding onto her with a death grip is showing the way Fai was reacting to this whole situation in this uncontrollable and overprotective way because she's afraid for Kaphrao. She's pissed off, first of all, but she's afraid for Kaphrao's safety. And then also is like defying her aunt for the very first time, something she's never dreamed of doing. Okay. And these descriptions right here just show you how out of sorts Fai is in the aftermath of doing this. Okay. And so it continues though. They get in the car and then Fai floors the accelerator. And Kaphrao is like, what the fuck? And she's scared and tells Fai, slow down, I'm scared. So then Fai stops the car so that she can, quote, cool off and says, I don't want to drive while I'm angry. Which is a very mature thing to do because Fai, the hothead, would just keep rage driving. Okay, but because Kaphrao's scared, she stops and is like, you're right, I need to cool off. So then Kaphrao blames herself for this situation because she's like, I'm the reason you got in a fight with your aunt. Because part of the reason Kaphrao doesn't want to start shit with the aunt by saying no is because she's like, Fai respects her and like that's also complicating the situation. And so Fai corrects her and is like, says, quote, none of what just happened was your fault. Like none of it. This is between my aunt and me, basically. Like my aunt did a bad thing. This wasn't you. And then in the car, in the aftermath of this, they finally have a real conversation. And Fai's so upset and promises she will not let anybody treat Kaphrao like that ever again. And Kaphrao directly thanks Fai for helping her out. And Fai finally makes sense of why she's been such a bully. And she says, quote, you should stand up to everyone like you do with me. Then no one would be able to push you around. Like she's telling her, like, I was like that to get you to push back so that people wouldn't take advantage of you. Because Fai was like, I was never taking advantage of you. I was just like trying to train you kind of thing, like the hard way. But this moment is unfortunately short-lived because they both go back into bad habits where I was like, cool. So back in your aunt's place, Fai, why did you call me NamneungNoey in front of everyone? Like, why did you use that term of endearment that said we're super close in front of the girl she also set you up with? And Fai, because she's like, you knew what you were saying and like you knew the audience and like Fai did. Like Fai said that specifically to make a statement, to be like, she's close to me, like super close. You fuck with her, you fuck with me. Like that was what she was saying. And Prowl's pointing all of that and being like, so why'd you do it? And then Fai doesn't answer because she's a mess. And then so Prowl's like, okay, well, it must be that you were doing this to basically get rid of your aunt's friend's daughter that you clearly don't like. And then Fai explodes because Kaphrao doesn't understand her. She's like, oh my God, you're the worst. Why can't you just understand that I like you without me having to say it eventually? Like, it was so funny. But that's the other thing I like about them, because their banter like very much transitions into being like, I can't tell you I like you because I literally cannot tell you how I can't say the words. So like, why can't you just understand me better? Why is this it's like that like frustration to be like, why can't you just understand me without me having to say words? Oh my God. All right, so then Fai recognizes that she needs some space from her aunt. Her aunt needs some space from her because they both need to think about this. So she takes Kaphrao to Bangkok and they go stay with Lam, Blue, and Lam's family. And they end up visiting Iris Cafe, which is the cafe that Blue and Lam start in their kind of like married life. And it's really cute because Fai thinks to herself, quote, she had already decided she wouldn't miss the chance to take Kaphrao to visit. So she just like, in her brain is like, I feel like Kaphrao would really like this place. I definitely have to take her to the cafe. But then she's an idiot about how she does it. And she like doesn't actually invite Kaphrao. She baits her into an argument, basically being like, well, I'm going to go and you can like stay here or come with me or whatever. And then Kaphrao goes with her because she's an idiot. But the cafe scene is really cute. I hope it's in the show, but like, who knows? Blue and Kaphrao bond immediately, which is super sweet. Like, or they keep bonding because they've already met. And they bond over the fact that they can't handle caffeine. So Lam makes them cocoa, which is a cute, like, nod to the air and is really sweet. And then while they're in Bangkok, this is where Kaphrao meets up with her best friend, Note. And I will say, I like this version of the Note thing a little bit better. And I was really hoping the series was doing a fake out with us and doing Note's motivation from the novel. But sadly, I don't think that's what's happening. But still holding that hope because I think it would be fucking hilarious if they did it. But anyway. So Kaphrao makes plans to hang out with Note. And the Fai's like, who's this person? I am going to drive you and pick you up, and I'll wait in a cafe nearby until you're done. And then Prowl's like, you really don't need to do all that. It's probably going to be a while. And then Fai tells her something that's really important, which is, quote, I'm good at waiting. Okay. Because Fai is, for all of her hot-headedness, is an incredibly patient person when she wants something. And so is Kaphrao. They're both very resilient people. Okay, so then Kaphrao notices again. She's like, wow, Fai's being nicer and calmer. It's very weird. But then it's like, you know what? But I'm not falling for your tricks, Fai. Like, you really need to. She's like, again, nuanced about how she approaches Fai. She like notices that Fai is changing, but she's like, you're gonna have to prove to me you're being sincere, okay, and that this is real, which is so fair as a reaction given their entire history. So I really, again, love the nuance of this. It's not this automatic, wow, she's nice and she stared at me, I love her. It's like, you need to show me you're for real. Like, I don't believe you at face value. So Fai meets Note at this thing. Okay. And Note introduces herself as Kaphrao's best friend, super friendly about it. And Fai introduces herself as Fai, not Achima, as Fai, because like it's Kaphrao's friend, so she's being casual about it. And Kaphrao thinks, quote, even though Fai's smile was a little awkward, it was clear she was forcing herself, which is so cute because like she's like, Fai doesn't know what she's doing and is bad at making friends, but like she's being awkward about it and clearly trying, which is very, very cute. Like she's like clearly out of her element, and like I love that Kaphrao notices and puts that together that Fai is being awkward, which is really cute. Okay, then this amazing misunderstanding happens where Note is like, oh, Kaphrao, is this your big sister? Like, is this, and Fai snaps, no, because Fai wants to be her wife, not her sister. And then Note's like, got it, I misunderstood that. So at first I thought I was finally going to meet this babe you told me all about. And then Fai's brain short circuits and Prow cuts off Note and explains, well, like, babe is the person in Prow's heart. Okay. And then Fai leaves. And then Kaphrau's like, God damn it, no, why the fuck did you have to bring up that shit from the past? And then Note's like, yeah, sorry, not sorry. Is Fai single? Because she's my type. I like him fiery. So this was a clusterfuck the first time meets Note. It's an absolute clusterfuck because like there's everybody's jealous of everyone, and then Note's just like, what's Fai's deal? Can I have her? Which is fucking hilarious. Okay, then Fai leaves this interaction and just like cannot let it go, and she heard. Okay, so like the minute Fai picks up Prao. The minute they're back from the dinner with Note, Fai's like, I need to ask you something. And Prao's like, oh my God, this has been a clusterfuck. Can this wait till tomorrow? Fai's like, no, I need to know right the fuck now. Who the hell is Babe? And Kaphrao describes this as, quote, Ashima fired the question like a bullet, referring to the number one enemy who had been, oh no, sorry, this is Fai. The number one enemy who's been bothering her endlessly since she overheard from Etatia's friend. So Fai already cast this mysterious person as her number one enemy and is like violent with her words about it, like a bullet. Like this description is hilarious. It's so hilarious, especially because of who Babe is. It's her, felt Joseph herself, which is hilarious. That's why I was kind of hoping the series like Note was like playing it up real thick to like troll Fai, because Fai deserves to be trolled. Okay. She does. She deserves a taste of her own medicine. Anyway, Fai does not let this go. And it's like, no, seriously, who is it? Is it somebody you like? Somebody you talk to? Your boyfriend? Does my dad know about this? And Kaphrao tries to play dumb, like it never happened, because the way Kaprao's thinking about it, she like does not, quote, want to bring up old memories that no longer mattered. Because again, she's like, that was in the past. That was past me and Fai. This is present me and Fai. And she's like compartmentalized those two things. And then she's like, it never happened, Fai. And then Fai says, NamneungNoey said it. And then Prao flips out and she's like, why are you calling my friend Nong? Like, are you guys friends now? What the fuck is this? And like, I love that this conversation is hilarious because they're both jealous over nothing. And it's absolutely hysterical because like Fai is not into Note. Fai was trying to be friendly because like this is Kaprao's friend. She's trying to like change and be a better person. And then like Frao's like, oh my God, you're into my friend. And then like Fai is jealous of the Babe person who is herself. So like the whole thing is just so fucking funny because it just is. And I wish the series had it, but it's okay. It exists here. Oh my God, they're so ridiculous. Okay, then Fai, who's like, okay, what the fuck, consult Coach Lam because Coach Lam is back in the story. Okay, and Fai is genuinely crushed after learning about the Babe thing. And she's frustrated because she's like, I'm trying so hard to change for Kaphrao while Kaphrao already has somebody like in her heart. And like, she's, frustrated about it. So Lam gives her this really great pep talk. Okay, one that is echoed multiple times by multiple characters, including Kaphrao at a later time, where she says, quote, I'm not saying you should change yourself for someone else and lose who you are. But if you try to improve and it doesn't work out, at least you've done it for yourself. You become a better version of who you already are. So I love that. It's kind of like what the Four Elements Wives Club told Kaphrao. She's like, okay, this whole like makeover thing, it's not about Fai. I mean, we're here to troll Fai, but like it's really about you and you being proud of who you are inside and out. It's about having confidence, all that shit. And Lana's basically telling her that. She's like, okay, Fai, at the end of the day, this motivation for changing should really be about you wanting to change yourself to be better. Not so, I'm glad she's the motivation, but like ultimately, like your goal is to be a better person for you, and not to be a totally different person. And then later, like Din gives her similar advice when Fai is like, should I be more like you guys? Should I be more like Din? Should I be more like Lam? Should I be more like Nam? And Din tells her, don't be like us. Just be yourself. Like the thing is, you gotta be you. You can't be me. You can't be Lam. You can't be Nam. Like you're Fai. Be Fai. It's okay to be the fire. That's okay. Just like don't be a child. Don't be an asshole about it. That's all they're saying. They're like, have manners. That's all we're saying. We're not saying be a different person. Rose might not say that, but like, we didn't bring Rose to this conversation. So, although they should have, because I love unhinged things that come out of Rose's mouth. Okay, so then during this pep talk with Lam asks Fai if she's going to give up on Kaphrao, and Fai thinks this is one of my favorite things. I'm hoping makes sense of the series. Okay, Fai thinks Quote, she was never the heroine type anyway. Playing nice never worked for her. She'd be the villain since she'd been the villain since she was a kid. So she might as well stay that way. I'm into that. I'm into the villain. Villains are just like selfish people. And so I'm into that. She's like, fuck that. I'm going to be selfish here. And then she says to Lom, quote, a person like me doesn't know how to spell the word give up. I'll find a way to squeeze into her heart until that someone she's thinking about gets kicked right out. Which is funny because it's herself, but it says a lot about Fai, where basically she's like, I'm good at waiting. I'm persistent. I don't give up easily. And like, I'll be selfish if I need to be, which is a totally normal human thing to do. Love that about her. Okay. Then hilariously, Blue and Lom try to conspire to help this situation. And Blue is like, Lom, you're the love coach. Can't you help them? And Lom's like, oh my God, I'm trying. I promise. And Blue's like, oh my God, if only Rose were here. And then I said when I was reading this out loud, oh dear, because Rose is such a goddamn wild card. So Lom's like, you're a genius, babe. So then she sends Fai and Kaphrao to Chiang Mai, where Rose is, because we can't fix it. Rose can. Okay. And then when they first get there, they get out of the car. And Kaphrao and Fai are like arguing or whatever. And Kaphrao basically pushes Fai into telling her how she feels. Because she's like, you're being weird, why are you being weird? And she's like, I feel like you hate me. And then she's like, I don't hate you. And then Kaphrao's like, okay, but like, if you don't hate me, like, what is this? And Fai she tries so hard and like stutters, but like cannot get the words out, like cannot say how she feels. She doesn't know how, but she tries. And she's just scared, and she's like not used to being totally vulnerable with people, and she's like scared of losing people, and she's like having all these big feelings and can't get it out. Okay. And apparently Rose was watching this entire thing, because then she cuts in and is like, Fai, if you mess this up again, like, I'm not letting you call me Boss Rose anymore. Like, it's like, what the fuck, Rose? Like, Rose just says the most unhinged things. And it's so funny, though, because, like, Rose is the one that gives Fai the tough love, the way Fai gave, like, Kaphrao the tough love. And it's like a taste of her own medicine. But it's just like, Rose is so unhinged. And honestly, this keeps getting unhinged, because then she's like, well, Blue sent you here, so Boss Rose is going to take care of this. So then Rose devises this half-baked plan, okay, that she only half tells Fai what's going on, where her plan is to trap Kaphrao and Fai inside a greenhouse. Okay, this is her big master plan. This is hilarious. This is classic Rose, okay? Okay. She doesn't tell Fai she's going to lock him in the greenhouse, but she does tell Fai women like to be wooed with flowers. So she gives Fai that one instruction and then sets up the hostage situation in the greenhouse, because her story is about human trafficking. So honestly, I'm not surprised. This is where we went with this, but oh my God, this is hilarious. I have to imagine Din didn't know any of this. Like, Din was distracted somewhere, and like Rose did all this by herself with Modang, probably. Okay, so here's what happens. They get trapped in the greenhouse, and then Fai properly apologizes and tells Kaphrao she's been felt guilty about all of this for like the last 15 years. And then she hands Kaphrao a bouquet of Kaphrao, which is holy basil. And Kaprao's first response is, that's so weird. Because Fai is the most awkward cousin. She's so awkward. She just hands her a bouquet of basil. But the weird move makes Kaphrao smile, and it like eases all the tension, and she starts laughing because Fai's unpredictability makes her happy. Okay. And like, that's the crux of their relationship, that they're similar, but they're not similar. And like, that's what keeps things interesting. They both like that about each other. And I like that it ends with Fai. What was it? It ends with Fai saying, like, what is it? Oh, yeah. She's like, okay, sorry. We get back to the probably like, okay, like, why did you trap me in here? And Fai's like, I need to tell you something. And Kaprow's like, okay, then just say it. And Fai's like, okay, I will say it like my real self. And she tells her that she likes her a lot. And like, it's direct. It's like straightforward. It's in her very Achima way. And I like that she says this, okay, that explicitly before she says she likes Kaphrao, because a part of what Lam was trying to get at is that Fai needs to be herself. And like Fai in this scene when she's confessing is consciously doing that. And the fact that she is herself, the way this is an insane scenario getting locked in a greenhouse. She's like, Rose, like, give her flowers. She gives her basil because that's her name. And in Fai's brain, that makes sense. And she goes about it in a super awkward fashion and then blurts out, I like you. That's the most Fai way to go about this, okay? And all of those things are what charm Kaphrao, because Kaphrao likes Fai for who she is. Not Lam, not Din, not Nam. She likes Fai. And so this was only going to work if Fai was being herself. And so Fai's brand of weird charm is what gets the smile and laugh, and like her intensity of saying the way she said I like you is what gets the point across, and that's what seals the deal, and that is like the turning point, because now they are both aware that this crush is mutual. And that's when things get really awkward, like super awkward. So then at dinner with Rose and Din, they're doing the thing where they're too polite and they don't know how to act. And so they're like, you take the last shrimp cake. No, you take the last shrimp cake. No, you take it. You take it. Rose is watching this being like, oh, for fuck's sake. And then she spears it. She's like, I'm taking the fucking last shrimp cake. You guys are the worst. And like, what's funny about this scene is not only is it funny because it's funny, but it's because like the two of them are in uncharted territory and they recognize that, because the two of them only know how to interact with each other when they're bickering. So when they're not bickering, they're like, I don't know how to, all we ever do is tease each other. We're not teasing each other. What do we do? And so it's, I like this transition period in their story, because the transition into rebuilding the trust, becoming more than friends, all of that is really hinges on Kaphrao and Fai learning more about each other. And that's what the rest of the story really is, which is how it should be in a character-focused story. And it's really cute because later that night, neither of them can sleep because they have that like nervous energy and they're awkward and they don't know what to do. And then they are wandering around the estate and they bump into each other. And Fai admits really sweetly to Kaphrao that part of the reason that she's nervous is that she's scared that Kaphrao is gonna hate her for like basically having feelings for her, kind of thing. And Kaphrao is like, listen, bitch, it's not that. She's like, I can't get past the part about you liking me and that being real. She's like, because, quote, we've never had good moments together. Like, it's just all built on bickering and bullying. And Fai's like, so liking someone has to be based on happy moments, which is defensive and a hilarious statement at the same time. Because, like, you can, like, trauma bond with people. Like, it is possible. Like, I get what she's saying, but, like, the way she says it is just funny to me. And Bro's like, listen, like, all we do is argue, and suddenly then you tell me out of nowhere that you like me, you hand me basil. Like, how could I not be confused about this? And then Fai says, okay, well then if to you love means happy moments, or like, then let's make some. She's like, let's do it. Let's make happy moments. Then you tell me if you like me or not. And Kaprao's like, okay. And Fai's like, let's go to this top of this mountain, because like Rose brings it up, and then Kaprao's like, okay, well, I'll tell Rose so we can all go. And then Fai's like, we're not bringing my cousin and cousin-in-law. She's like, quote, because if we go with a group, how can I call it a date? Like, the point is to be like, do you like me? Can we have to do this alone? And so I thought that was cute, because like Fai very slowly gets better at flirting, because that was a pretty smooth transition the way she did that. And like, again, it's realistic. She's a young person who's never been in this scenario before and like is learning, and like you get to see her like mess up and like get better over time at just like talking to people, wooing Prow. Like it's not like you don't flip a switch and suddenly she's an expert at this. Like she stumbles and falls and like, but is so persistent that like she keeps, or resilient rather, she keeps going and gets better and better over time. And it's again paced so well in the story, and I will never ever be over the pacing of this story. It is masterful. Like, I wonder if it comes from like this being the fourth book in this series, where like Salmon really knows the characters and has like been in this world for a while, that like this story was so well done. Like the storytelling structure, like not just the characters, but like everything about it was really fantastic. Okay, so then they go to the top of this mountain that Rose describes as like a misty mountaintop, and it's super romantic. And she's like, "Take Prow there, and you guys go camp." Okay, so they go camping, and there's only one tent because Fi only brings one tent. And Kaphrao freaks out about this, and Fi's like, "Listen, quote, I'm not going to do anything inappropriate. I just invited you on a trip, not like that kind of thing." And Caprao's like, "Just thinking about that kind of thing, and you're dead, girl. Don't even mentally go in that direction. I'll kill you." And like the fact that these two share a brain cell sometimes, I swear to God, the way they're like reflexively angry about different things will never not make me laugh because they have two sides of the same coin, these two. Okay, this was really cute too. So like Fi's like, "Okay, well, help me set up the tent." Or she starts setting up the tent, and Crow's like, "I'm gonna go for a walk." And then she's like, "No, wait. Like she says, "Prow, help me out, please. Like help me do this, and then we'll go for a walk together." So it's the first time that Fi nicknames, like uses her super intimate name, which is not Kaphrao, it's Prow. And she also says, "Help me, please." Okay, so this was like an extremely intimate conversation that they're having on this date, first of all, where Fi is asking for help, which she never does, and says please, and calls Prow by her super intimate. Like, that's a lot for Kaphrao all at once. Like, again, she's like, "I feel like I'm getting whiplash." And like, this is a lot. Like, you know, but good on Fi because she's really, really trying. Okay, so then after dark, it gets cold. And then Fi insists that Kaphrao take the extra jacket they brought. And I think this is the moment that solidifies things for Kaphrao that this is genuine and Fi is not trying to trick her or anything, because the way Fi offers her the jacket is, quote, the real Achima. Okay? Because Prow can tell that Fi is not pretending to be somebody else and win her over. She's being herself, and like ultimately that's what wins her over, because here's how she does it, okay? Fi does the jacket. Fi shoved it towards her face with that usual stiff manner and stern gaze, then visibly relaxed when she saw Kaphrao actually put it on. Okay? So Fi's execution is awkward, intense, and just like it's her. So then Kaprao's got good enough at reading her body language to be like, Fi is being sincere. Because Salmon, my girl poking fun at tropes, comes back in this scene in the book, okay? Because in a trope, Fi would have just carefully draped the jacket over Prow's shoulders like a gentlewoman. And Prow makes, who has read romance novels, notes that and is like, that's not what Fi does, which is how I know she's not bullshitting me. Okay. And another thing I like about this little tidbit in Prow's mind is the part where she notices Fi visibly relaxes when she puts the jacket on. It shows that like Kaphrao and Fi to a degree are good at reading each other's body language, which is an important form of communication and one that often gets like overlooked or underplayed, especially in books. So like I like that it was here. Like I appreciate the level of detail that Salmon put into this story, particularly with things like that, because Fi struggles with communicating verbally. So like her body language would be important. And so I like that it's pointed out here. Then we transition into they get into like some pretty intimate discussions, not like sexy intimate, but like vulnerable intimate. And Fi starts talking about how she feels that she's always being compared to her cousins, okay? And she laments out loud to Prow that like she's like, "Oh my god, if only I was more like Din or Nam or Lam." Like she's like, "Wouldn't be so stressed out about like wooing you, basically, or the fact that you don't like me, or like that kind of thing." And she describes them like Din is the kind one who is the ultimate eldest child, sacrifices herself for other people. Nam is the smartest person in the room who's capable of everything. And Lam is charming, warm, and has chemistry with Doors. Like, and Fi's like, "Where do I fit into this fucking family?" Quote, "Look at me. I'm the problem child. I'm rude. I'm not good at school. No matter how hard I try, I'm not as good as them. I've never made my dad proud. There's a lot to unpack there with what Fai just said. Okay. But one thing I want to point out is that I absolutely love the fact that Salmon gave Fai an inferiority complex. Okay, that's what all of that was. After 3 novels demonstrating how flawless her cousins are and how they're in perfectly happy marriages and living fairy tale lives, she took the last one and was like, "You're getting so many. You're not. You're going to be flawed, deeply flawed, and but lovable." After I made all these perfect, your cousins, I showed them they're perfect, and I like the fact that she wrote this to show that Fai's aware. Fi is aware at how great her cousins are. Like, she loves them dearly, but she's like, I feel like when you line us up, I'm the black sheep, basically. You know, I'm the one who's lesser, not just younger, but like, I can't compare to them. Like, what good? She's like, I don't have any good qualities, is basically what she's saying. Okay. And the other telling thing in the statement is that she mentions her father. Nobody brought her father up. So I wonder if she's like feeling like, oh my God, my dad must wish that like one of my cousins was his daughter and not me. Like maybe that's why he doesn't love me. I wonder if she like compares herself to her cousins on that level when it comes to like her and her father. Cause like, you know, she's been around her other uncles and like seen their father daughter relationships. And I wonder if she does that comparison and is like, damn, is it my fault we don't have a relation? Like, you know what I mean? I wonder if the comparison goes even deeper because, like, she brought up her father, nobody else did. So Fai continues to get more vulnerable with Kaphrao, and after she confesses how she feels lesser in her family, Kaphrao echoes what the cousins have been saying, where she says, quote, "You just need to be yourself. If someone's gonna like you, then they're gonna like you the way you are." So then Fai gets the courage to ask, quote, "Then do you like me at all?" And Kaphrao is stunned into silence. Because again, she's not expecting the question, she's not expecting it with such sincerity, such honesty. But Fai interprets silence as rejection. So she starts to storm away, and then Kaphrao grabs Fai's wrist before she can run away. And she's like, I was silent because I was thinking. Okay. And before I answer you, I want to ask you something first. And Kaphrao asks her something that's been weighing on her for years, which is, quote, "Did you really want me to disappear 15 years ago?" So I feel like that's what's been weighing on Kaphrao, being like, Fai didn't want me. That's like, Fai put me in the truck. Like, you know, was this Fai saying leave? Because they never got to talk after that. Like, Fai never got to clear her name. She never got to tell Kaphrao the truth of it. They just never saw each other again. So that has been gnawing away at Kaphrao for 15 years, being like, wow, I didn't realize Fai hated me that much. And so she's like, Fai, like, did you hate me back then? Like, that's what she's asking. Like, was this hatred? Like, why'd you do it? And then Fai confesses the full truth, like, tells her everything about the teddy bear, all that stuff. And she follows it with, quote, "I don't know if you'll believe me now because I'm grown up and I could easily twist this story to make myself look innocent, but I swear every word of what I just said is the truth from my side." And that was an incredibly mature statement from Fai, because not only is it brutally honest, which is her brand, but the fact at the end, like, this was from my point of view, this is the truth. Like, it leaves the door open for Kaphrao to challenge Fai with her own point of view. And I love the way she framed that. Like, that was the most mature thing she said to date, like in this story. Which is what makes it hilarious that Kaphrao starts teasing Fai immediately, okay? Where she's like, yeah, no, I believe you. And this is really cute. So then Fai becomes like this ball of nervous energy, okay, and has a hard time looking Kaphrao straight in the eye, okay, when she's like talking to her. So then Kaphrao's like, when you say you like me, Fai, look me in the eyes and say it. And Fai's like, don't tease me. You know I'm not good at this. And Kaphrao's like, I know. And Fai's like, you know, and you're still teasing me? And Prowl says, well, after all the times you teased me growing up, it's only fair I get to return the favor now. So I love this conversation because it's like a rebuilding of trust between the two of them. Like they have found the balance finally between the two of them. And it's like they're back to their like playful, teasy banter. And it's the bite's gone completely out of it because they're on the same page now. And so, but Fai like is a ball of nervous energy at this point and panics, and so Kaphrao lunges and hugs Fai, and in the embrace calls her babe. Okay, and Fai doesn't get it and is instantly annoyed and jealous. She's like, "Why the fuck are you saying other women's names or whatever when you're hugging me and this and that?" And so Kaphrao says, stop being dense, babe. And then thinks, if she didn't get it by now, honestly, it wasn't worth explaining. Like, it was so funny. Like, Fai takes forever to realize it's her and is like, oh my God. But it's like, proud. On Fai's side of these things, she's like, it took forever for you to realize that she liked you. And so, like, they're both stupid. And I just love how dumb they are. They're both really dumb. But persist, they do. But I love how she's like, girl, this ain't worth it no more. This was fun for in the beginning, but now I'm just annoyed with you. Okay, so after this love confession, they come down from the mountain back to Din and Rose's, and Fai becomes insufferable in a new way. Okay, so Rose asks, were the mountains beautiful, Fai? And Fai's like, they're all right. Kaprao's way prettier than the mountains. Which embarrasses the shit out of Kaphrao and like makes Din and Rose laugh because it's so blunt and straightforward, and it's just Fai is so awkward about stuff. I just love it. Okay, so like Kaphrao unleashes a different kind of monster in Fai, which is the like love cuddly. She's the type of person that would like fight people in the street and be like, "No, my wife's the hottest." Like that. That's fine. Okay, so then they drive back to Surat together. And oh my god, this is one of my favorite dialogues. Fai promises, like, again, I'm not gonna let anybody bully you ever again. And Prow's like, but the person that bullied me was you. what the fuck? Like, Fai means her aunt, but this is hilarious banter. I just love it. And then it keeps getting worse because Fai picks up a tries to steal a pickup line from Lom. I read the whole thing where like Fai gotta be yourself. She tries to pull a Lom and do this pickup line. Okay, this is so funny where she's like trying and it keeps failing. And then Prow's like, what? And she's like, my heart is heavy because it's full of you, Kaphrao. And Prow's response is, you're teasing me again, aren't you? You're calling me fat, aren't you? And it's just like so fucking funny the way this fails spectacularly. Because like Fai is not Lom, is why it fails. And Kaphrao is not into Lom. She is into Fai. She likes Fai's straightforwardness. She likes Fai's literal language. And she likes Fai's intensity, not Lom's waxing poetic love languages. So it's just hilarious that it just fails. But like it fails because they are different and they are weird in their own way. And their brand of weirdness is what's gonna win, not pretending to be Lom. But just her trying to do a pickup line was just, I hope that's in the show because it just has to be extremely awkward, and just awkward Fai is so funny to me. Oh my god. Speaking of Lom, okay, then this ridiculous conversation happens. Okay, so Fai asks, well, okay, between me and my cousins, who's the best looking? And Prow's like, you want me to be honest, right? And Fai's like, yes. And she's like, okay, then it's Lom, duh. And then Fai starts sulking instantly, which so it's canonical that Lom's the hot one. And then Fai gets upset, and Prow's like, okay, well, you didn't ask the right question, Fai. Like, if you asked who I like the most, you wouldn't be upset. So Fai puffs herself up and it's like, okay, fine, who do you like the best? And Prow's like, I like this teddy bear, it's so cute. And Fai gets more upset that she loses to a toy, which is so funny. So I'm so happy that Kaphrao gets to like genuinely tease Fai in this like playful way because she deserves it and it's really fucking funny. All right, so when they get back to Surat, Fai insists on telling her father immediately because like you have to do things the right way or what have you. So this is also incredible. She gets them over to her dad's house, sits him down, and is like, Okay. Meeting has adjourned. Fantastic. Meeting has commenced. Great. We're dating. I just wanted to let you know we're a couple now. That's it. That's all Fai says. Like, it's just that one sentence. And it's just hilarious. But like, at the root of it, it's revealed that Fai is super nervous to actually have this conversation with her father because, quote, Kaphrao has been your favorite since she was little, and I thought maybe you'd be too protective of her to let her date someone like me. So what I love about this is that this transitions into Fai and her father actually having an honest conversation with like Kaphrao kind of like encouraging the two of them, and it's really sweet because like Fai finally explains to her dad that like she thinks he sees her as like a problem child basically, and her father's like, I literally have never seen you like that, like you're misunderstanding me. And he says, quote, I don't know where you got that idea or who said it, but to me, you're a daughter I'm proud of. And it's really sweet that they finally get on the same page, and like she gets the love from him like communicated to her in a way she understands. So they finally get on better terms. And another cute transition is that like Kaphrao essentially gets permission now to essentially call him dad and not like uncle or something like that. So she actually becomes more like solidified in the family, which is really, really adorable. Okay. But then we have to get to the big drama of this and the conclusion, which is the Aunt Pani situation. So that's still a point. That's the final boss here. So after these two come out to Acne with their relationship, Prow makes Fai agree that they pretend that they're not dating to anybody else because they don't want Aunt Pani to find out about this. And Fai's like, I really don't want to do that, but like, yes, I will yield to you here. I agree with you. We'll do that because let's avoid conflict with her. But then, of course, these two idiots out themselves day one at work. Okay, these idiots. So, like, one of the coworkers starts bullying Prout because Fai taught her to do that, and then Fai gets upset, like berates the employee, brings Prout into her office, and is like, "I promise I wouldn't let anybody bully you." This and that, and then like they end up like kissing each other, like cheek kisses. Okay. And another employee walks in while Kaphrao is retaliating with a kiss. Okay. So they get caught immediately, and that gossip spreads like wildfire. Okay, so the Aunt Penny finds out like 3 hours later. Okay, and then is livid and tries to physically assault Prow and like smack her. Okay, but then Fai jumps in front of her and basically, quote, by the time Pani realized what she had done out of anger, it was already too late to stop herself, and she ends up hitting Fai, not Kaphrao. Fai, the person who means the most in the world to her, somebody she would never act like consciously harm. She physically harms Fai. And Pani is incredibly out of sorts here. She can't believe any of this is happening, and then that this just happened. And Fai tells Pani why she jumped in front of Prow, and she says, quote, because I love her. I've loved her for a very long time. Like, very straightforward, very honest. By the way, first time you're telling your girlfriend you love her. Proud didn't even know that until Proud. I just said that. And this goes back to a conversation that I didn't get into, but Acne and Penny have this conversation where she's confronting him about the Kaphrao situation in the present, and she's like, she causes trouble for Fai. You need to keep her away from her. And Acne says, is that what Fai wants, though? Like, I know that's what you want, but like, are you sure this is what Fai wants? And like, this is kind of the manifestation of that. Okay, like Fai is telling you what she wants, kind of thing. And like, because this story has a whole lot of assumptions going on and a hell of a little bit of communication. Like, that's kind of like the human flaw in the story. And we have to navigate all the miscommunication and like our trauma, etc. So when Fai says she loves her, like Pani faints, okay, because what the fuck, and then she's taken to the hospital, okay, and at the hospital, that's where so Fai and her father are the ones that go. Prow stays and doesn't want to like make this worse, right? So Acne and Fai talk, and that's where Acne tells Fai the truth about like her mother and her mother's sister, and it contextualizes Pani's love for Fai for the very first time to Fai, who had no idea the context of all of this. Okay. She just knew her aunt loved her. And then we're in the situation where like who does Fai choose, basically? Like, well, Fai's gonna have to make a choice. That's the dilemma we're setting up, okay? So Fai's like, I don't want to have to choose anybody. So she takes Kaphrao to visit Aunt Punny, and it goes horribly, horribly. Like Aunt Punny like verbally assaults Kaphrao and like get the fuck out of my room. And Fai tries to reason with her. And she's like, look, this love is real. Like, this is what I want. I'm telling you flat out. And Aunt Punny, who's being triggered hard, says, quote, if you insist on choosing her, then go ahead and start planning my funeral. And Fai is hearing this with the context that her father gave her about like when Aunt Punny's divorce went down, she was suicidal. So Fai takes this very, very seriously. Okay. So anytime we're in a hospital in the Four Elements world, all of the cousins must come visit. So in this case, the closest cousins are Nam and Lada. So they're the ones that represent the four elements in this scenario. So they come to the hospital. And Nam talks to Fai about the situation with her aunt. And Fai says to Nam, I must be a terrible niece for not realizing she was unwell. And Fai says really softly, it's like showing that she's really hurt and like scared. And Nam basically says what Sarah Nelson says in Heartstopper, which is, quote, love cannot cure a mental illness. And thank you, Salmon. That is one of the best messages ever. So like you're on Alice Osmond's level. Like that's saying something, man. She's a genius. Or they're a genius. Sorry. Anyway, but yeah, Nam's like, love can't cure. You're not a doctor, Fai. Like, this is not your job. And so Nam's like, well, this is serious. Okay, these aren't just words. So like the best course of action is for you to take care of her because like you're next of kin, she trusts you, all that kind of stuff. So what they decide to do is they're like, Nam and Lada like temporarily adopt Kaphrao, basically. And they're like, she'll come to Houlihan with us. We'll get her a job. You know, she can hang out with us over there until you settle the stuff with your aunt. Okay. Because this story has no third act breakup. Okay. Finally, we got there. Okay. Because Fai refuses to choose between her aunt and Kaphrao. Okay. And Kaphrao's like, okay, but if you had to, what would you do, Fai? And Fai's like, I would choose our happiness before anything else. Like ours, not mine. And like, that was a cute statement because it's like a super validating moment for Kaphrao and like overwhelming, like how thoughtful Fai is. And also she keeps saying she loves her and all this stuff. So then in this scenario, Fai proves she loves Kaphrao with a kiss. And this was like their first kiss. And like, this was so perfect for the two of them because the way Kaphrao thinks about it is, quote, if you asked how it felt when we kissed for the first time, it wasn't sweet. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't warm like the movies. But it was her. The raw, unfiltered, unapologetically real Fai. And it's like, yes, we're not all love experts in these shows. And I like that Kaphrao is like, it's just Fai. And that's what makes it special because it's her kind of thing. Love that. I love that trope. It's like, I would burn the world down for you kind of trope. All right. So then Kaphrao starts getting nervous about there potentially being an ultimatum and like all this kind of stuff. And Fai is like, listen, you and I have been apart for 15 years. I am not losing any more time with you. And this is one of my favorite exchanges. And this is why I love this story so much, where Kaphrao is like, good, quote, if being the heroine means losing you, I'd rather not be one. And Fai says, and I won't be the hero either. I'll be the villain who loves you. And that's one of my favorite quotes from the novel because like, I'm not going to be something I'm not. And like, also like the villain gets what they want. So like, let's just be villains. Like, I love that they're just like, fuck that. Fuck being heroic. Like, that's stupid. Like, fuck that shit. Let's just be happy and figure out a way to navigate this. So essentially they do long distance while Aunt Punny kind of recovers. And so what this ultimately boils down to is this is their final test of patience and resilience, like something the two of them have in common. Okay, so what Fai does in the meantime is she drives to Hua Hin every weekend because she prefers driving to flying. And this is something that Din did in the Earth novel when Rose was taking care of her dad. So I like that little parallel here too. And the first weekend she visits, Fai stalls when it comes to leaving. She tries to like have as much time as possible. And Kaprao's like, you gotta go, it's getting late. It's getting late. And Fai keeps stalling and stalling and stalling. Okay. And they're walking along the beach. And Fai spontaneously proposes with a bottle cap. And Prow thinks, believe it or not, it was the most unique and unforgettable proposal. One only Fai could have come up with. And there would never be anyone in the world like her. And like, again, that description right there is why I love this story. They love who the other person is at their core. Like it's not based on a physical attraction. It's not even really, I guess it is based on more of an emotional attraction where it's like, I just love who you are, like, period. When you are unabashedly yourself. That is what I love. And like, it's just, this is so cute. I'm confident this will end up in the show in some version. Okay. So, because that's Fai's way of being like, I know we're apart, but like, this is serious between us, kind of thing, in her own way. Okay. So then 3 months go by, and we're going through, we had a glimpse into like where Aunt Piney's at in her recovery. And so she's seeing a psychiatrist. Fai diligently takes her all of her appointments. And they've gotten to a point where like their roles have reversed. Because part of the thing that's going on with Pani too is that Fai is a child in her eyes because that's her baby, right? And Fai has to prove she's an adult. And so Fai is now in the caretaking role for her aunt, whereas the aunt has been the caretaker for Fai's entire life. Okay, so like their roles are reversing in a big way. And so Pani has to like see Fai as a capable adult. And like Fai shows her by devoting all of her time and energy into her aunt. Okay. And what's really important is that she sees Fai as an adult, but also is that Pani is experiencing how Fai's love for her does not waver or change just because Fai loves Kaphrao. Like, it's not a competition, okay? And like, this is what really helps the road to acceptance, where she can see that like Fai hasn't changed. Like, Fai still loves me the way she always has. Like, it didn't change. I wasn't being abandoned. Like, because we don't get the details of like what happened in her marriage, but like maybe she was abandoned. Like, and that's why she has abandonment issues also. So, and she lost her sister, and she's like, I never got her back. Like, what if Fai leaves me? And I think Fai needed to prove like I'm not going to leave you, like, just because I have her. And so Pani also comes to this place of acceptance where she realizes and tells Fai, like, I made mistakes raising you. I see that now. Like, good intentions, bad execution, bad outcome kind of thing. And so I like that not just the children in this story, or like not children, but like the young ones go through like reflection and growth and change. The adults do too. Okay? Because the adults play a role in fixing this also. It's not just the young ones saving the world. Like, the adults are a part of the equation. I like that Salmon really weaves them into the story and has them change, make amends, say their story, admit they made mistakes. Like, I love that about this story so much. All right, but this wouldn't be a Thai girl love novel if we didn't have a car accident. So, who's the victim? It's Fai. Fai's been in a car accident from driving back from Hua Hin because she stalls anytime she has to leave Kaphrao. It's really late, and she falls asleep at the wheel. Okay, and she ends up in the hospital. And then Aunt Piney is super triggered because this is Fai's mother all over again. I'm about to lose her. She's going to die. Like, she gets super triggered, okay? So Fai is unconscious in the hospital. And while Fai is unconscious, Kaphrao calls like a million times and blows up Fai's phone. And eventually Piney looks at the phone to see who is calling Fai. And she sees Fai's wallpaper on her phone for the first time. And it's the photo Fai took with Kaphrao at the bridge. And what Piney notices is, quote, Achima's smile was radiant. And like, this is really the tipping point where Pani like cannot ignore that Kaphrao is Fai's happiness. Like, she sees how happy Fai is, and she's like, I need to make amends with Fai before it's too late, before one of us dies. Like, okay. So then we get a repeat of when Aunt Penny was in the hospital, where the whole Hua Hin gang comes to the hospital. Okay. But it's Fai in the hospital. So Kaprao's a giant mess, and she barges into the room and to see Fai. Okay. And is like doting all over her, like hugging her, and Fai screaming because it hurts. And like Bonnie's in there too. Okay. And then everyone feels the tension in the room. Okay. Except Nam. Because it's Nam. So Nam suggests, she's like, Lada, now would be a great time if we go get food and leave the three of them alone. And then I forget who thinks this, but quote, no one could tell whether Nam was trying to ease the tension or just dropped a bomb before walking out with Lada. Again, thank you. All the moments with biblically accurate Nam are always best because she's ridiculous. And like, again, who knows what Nam actually interpreted that situation, because Nam is so bad at reading human emotions and body language. Like, who knows what Nam was actually thinking, but it was fucking hilarious. Nobody's like, what is Nam? What are you doing? So yeah, all the tension right over Nam's head. Okay. But Nam was onto something, maybe, who knows, because this is when Aunt Penny extends the olive branch, essentially, and she does it by relinquishing the duty of feeding Fai to Kaphrao. So, which is symbolic of like, take care of her kind of thing. And basically, after she does that, she has the talk with Kaphrao. And it's exactly like somebody who's related to Fai would have this conversation. It's extremely intense and really overly productive, okay? Where she says to Kaphrao, quote, I'll allow you to stay by her side if you can make her happy. But if you can't, just tell me and I'll be the one to make you leave myself. Okay. So it's a very threatening, like, I'm giving you permission to date her talk, which the complete opposite of Fai's actual father, who's like, yay! But there's always good cop, bad cop, okay? All right. So then we've resolved that. We come to a point of acceptance through therapy and self-reflection, which is great. And then later, when everybody goes home, Aunt Pani and Kaphrao are, quote, bonding. And this is back at the house, like not at the hospital. And Kaphrao tells Aunt Pani straight up, she's like, Fai's love, this was never a competition for who Fai loves the most. And she says one of the most important things, which is, quote, you once asked me if I can make her happy. And the truth is, I can, but it's only a small part of her happiness. The one who brings her the most happiness every day is you. Like, basically saying, like, it's not a competition. Like, Fai loves us both, and like, we both make her happy, and like, you clearly make her the most happy because like, you're basically her mom. Like, and she's like, we're not competing for anything. It's like, she loves us differently and loves us both, and that's okay. And then I like at the end also that Fai, we're resolving everything. Fai also makes amends with her father because she also wronged her father, okay, by throwing the temper tantrum when he wanted to bring his new wife into the house. And so now that she's in love and matured, she's like, I recognize now that like, she denied her father his own happiness for years, and he went along with it because he loved her. And so she has this meeting with him and Wani and is like, basically like, I give you my blessing to move into the house, and you should, because somebody needs to take care of my dad because I'm gonna marry Kaphrao and get out of here pretty soon. And I love that. I like that Fai also made the amends with her father, like actively. It was like, I was also wrong, even though I was a child. Like, it doesn't excuse my rudeness. And like, I realize now how that hurt you, and like, even though I felt I was justified at the time, like, again, these situations are nuanced and complicated, and I like that the characters recognize that and like try to be better, like all of them, including Fai, her father, Honey, Kaphrao, like everyone. It's just so great. Okay, so then we get to Fai's second proposal because she tries to outdo Lam. She's like, we're not gonna have a million weddings. I'm just gonna propose to you a bunch of times, I guess. And so the official proposal is at the suspension bridge. Okay, and then she gets down on her knee with a ring. Kaphrao is shocked, and then her reflexive response is, "Are you proposing?" And Fai, who's straightforward and literal, says, well, I'm not asking you to be my maid of honor. And like, and Kaphrao's like, oh my God, that was almost romantic. And then you ruined it, which is hilarious. So like, again, they can't ever do anything like normal people because they're not normal people. And like, I love that never changes. So, okay. Then they have a wedding. And honestly, this is probably, I'm really hoping that North Star keeps this faithful to the novel because this might be my favorite wedding because they do a small Southern style Thai wedding. So I cannot wait to see this, honestly. And like Kaphrao's in like a traditional outfit, and then Fai's in this like red suit, and like it's gonna be epic. And basically, they do the thing where like Fai has to like get past the guards guarding gates to get to Kaphrao and like pay them and like all that. Like I just can't wait to see all of this. And like the best one is Rose. Rose is, first of all, Lam and Blue were like one of the gates, and they're such suckers. Like they're so like, I don't know, they're such like lovey-dovey people that like basically Fai gives them one envelope and they're like, okay, Fai, go get your love. Like they don't even put up a fight. And then the last one's Rose, okay, who is truly the final boss of the wedding. If anyone is going to be the final boss, it's her. Okay. And she's not letting Fai get off easy. Okay. And Fai is like trying to bargain with Rose and it's not working. And then eventually Fai is like, take all the fucking envelopes. She hands her all of them and then says to Rose, quote, if that's not enough, go ask Din for more because I'm broke now. I just gave you all my money. It was so funny. She's like, I don't care. I just want to get to Kaphrao. Like, fuck you, Rose. It's so fucking funny. Oh my God. I love that we get so many scenes of Rose and Fai because when they butt heads, it's wildly entertaining. All right. And then, true to form, their wedding night is a hot fucking mess because, like, yes, it's not this fairy tale. It's them because they're messy. So Fai tries to, like, I don't know, set the mood. I don't know what she's doing, when she's flirting and it's not landing. Where she's, like, basically being like, I'm very excited because I've waited so long for, quote, the part where we get close, like, really close. And then Prow flips out and like literally flips Fai, like throws her on the bed, but like not in a sexy way, in a taekwondo way, and like throws, like flings Fai across the room, basically, in a self-defense way. Okay, and then like Prow's like, I'm taking a shower. Like leaves Fai. And then comes back and they actually talk about this. And Fai's like, okay, what the hell was that? She's like, are you scared? Like, because like, you know, wedding night's big deal or whatever. She's like, are you scared? And Prow says, no, I'm not scared. She's like, I'm just like embarrassed. Like, I've never done this before. And so like I love that her solution is to throw Fai across the room. Like, but anyway, I love the honesty that she's like, listen, you're acting all suave and shit because Mom probably coached her, and like, because she coaches everyone, or did, who knows? Hope it was Nom. But anyway, she's like, you're being all smooth, acting like you know what you're doing. And she's like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm like embarrassed. And like, anyway. So I love that they're real about this. They talk about it and then everybody calms down and they consummate their marriage. But like, oh my God, after some violence, like that's why I love them. You never know what's going to happen. They're very unpredictable. After the wedding, we time jump 1 month later to see how they're doing. And Fai takes Kaphrao to the place where they were separated as kids, so like where the truck was, and the truck drove away. And Fai surprises Kaphrao by planting an entire field of holy basil where they were separated. And she like secretly did all of this. She even called Din and Rose for advice to like make sure the basil thrives. She put in all this effort and is like, look what I did. And Kaphrao's answer is, or what she says is so sweet. She says, quote, you made this place not scary for me anymore. Like, because like she's afraid of the dark. She had so many traumatizing things that happened to her. And I love that Fai was like, look what I did. So like this can be a happy place now. And like this was an incredibly sweet and very full circle way. And that's where the story ends. Like, and it was a perfect ending. Like because they're like, this was a bad thing that happened, this was a mistake, but like, look, we've learned from it, we made this even better for the future. Like, that's the theme of one of the main themes, and it was just, what a fucking story. All right, before we close this out, I just want to do a brief run through of what the special chapters were. There were 5 of them, and the first one is called The Unveiling Truth, where that's where Fai reveals, I was actually drunk on the private island when I hugged you. Not because like I can hold my liquor like a sailor. So joke's on you. Second is Who Fell in Love First, where Note returns to cause some chaos, which causes what Fai describes as, quote, retroactive jealousy. So that's fun. Then we get Love from First Sight to Forever, which is a celebration of Aunt Punny's birthday. She turned 65. Go girl. Fourth is My Dearest Teddy Bear, where Fai and Aunt Punny team up to surprise Kaphrao for their wedding anniversary, in which Fai wears a like furry outfit of a teddy bear. I'm going to leave it there so you'll go read it because it's amazing. And then the last one, and certainly not least, is Orampha, which Beautiful as an Angel, which is how they get their daughter, essentially. And this is probably my favorite chapter, and this is what solidified Fai as my fave. And if I had to pick an element for myself, it's Fai. Because when they're discussing about having kids, Kaphrao admits that she's scared of pregnancy. And she's like, I'm afraid it's going to hurt and like all this stuff. And then Fai responds, and if anyone ever says this, you marry them on the spot. Fai says, quote, if you're scared of getting hurt, I will carry the baby myself. That was my absolute favorite line in the novel. Unfortunately, if you read the Wathinwanit's book that comes after this, that is not actually what happens. But the fact that Fai says that and is like, you don't want to do it because you're scared, I'll fucking do it. This is like, I'll take a bullet for you kind of thing. Like, but like in a practical sense, because like getting hit by bullets is less common than pregnancy. But I love that Fai says that. That's like chef's kiss. What solidifies her as my fucking favorite. So if you've made it this far, I think Fai being my favorite is obvious. And like The Fire being an incredible novel that I deeply, deeply love, will absolutely reread in the future, which I don't say about everything I read, is pretty evident. This was an epic story. Salmon, this was your absolute best story so far that I've read. Best in the 4 elements. It's just, the story was so well done. Like it was like an evolution of her writing is what I mean. I don't just mean like my biases towards loving the story, the tropes, like everything in it. Just, this was a really well done story from a storytelling point of view. Her pacing, all of it was phenomenal. Like, well done. So that's the end of book club. Next book up on the agenda, I'll be reading another Salmon novel, which is Queendom. And to get into that and kind of compare it to the novel a little bit, because I've heard great things. I've heard it's super different, and I'm excited to finally read it. If you have any suggestions for any other books that I should check out or try out, I would love to hear from you. Leave them in the comments. And until next time, hydrate for lesbian Jesus and gay it up all over the place. Bye. And with that, we've been Big Gay Energy. If you like this episode, check out all our other episodes right here on YouTube.
Please like, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more amazing super gay content.